Good evening. Thank you everyone for coming out on this rainy night and attending the September 22nd, 2025 meeting of the Westerville City Schools Board of Education. This evening's agenda will be displayed on the screen behind us. Printed agendas are available for our guests over at the door here, or you may find the agenda on your mobile device by connecting to the district's website at www.wcsoh.org. Click on the Our District link, select Board of Education, and follow Board Docs link to our current meeting agenda. There will be one opportunity to address the board after the work session. There are sign-up sheets located on the table where you entered the auditorium. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. A timer will be shown on this screen. And with that, Ms. Marshall, will you please call the roll?
Mrs. Altman?
Here.
Mr. Eckelman?
Here.
Mrs. Valentine?
Here.
Mrs. Levan?
Here.
Mrs. Meyer?
Here. Would you please join us in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. So next up is district highlights and recognitions, and this is a fun part of the evening. May I have a motion to approve the resolution of commendation for Janet Tressler Davis? I'm sorry, I need some glasses. May I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
And can we take the vote?
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Levan?
Yes.
Mr. Eckelman?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes, and welcome, Mr. Reeves.
Well, before you join us, tonight we are recognizing Janet Tressler Davis, who's retiring as president and CEO of the Westerville Area Chamber of Commerce on October 30th after 33 years of service. She's a proud Westerville South alum whose longstanding partnership with the district has led to many initiatives that have prepared Westerville City School students for the workforce and connected staff with local employers. To share more about her work with the district, I'd like to invite Scott Reeves, the district's Chief Personnel and Policy Officer, to the podium. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stifler. Janet? Well, I can say that in the 15 years that I've been here, I've known Janet nearly the entire time. She has been a valued partner to us, to me, and an incredible asset to this community. And it is my honor to read this resolution for you, the resolution of commendation for Janet Tressler Davis. Whereas Janet Tressler Davis served 33 years as President CEO of the Westerville Area Chamber of Commerce, and whereas her long-standing partnership with the district led to initiatives that prepared Westerville City School students for the workforce and connected staff with local employers, and whereas she organized a business advisory council that was instrumental in identifying the career fields for the district's pathway program. And whereas she collaborated with the district to launch the Westerville Educator Externship to help educators better understand local workforce needs and what skills students need to be successful. And whereas she advocated for the development of pre-apprentice programs, which give students on-the-job training with local employers and a pathway to career success. And whereas she served on the Westerville Workwise Collective, of which Westerville City Schools is a member. And whereas Tressler Davis, who is a proud Westerville South alumni, often supported, hosted, and or participated in school and district-related functions. Therefore, be it resolved that the Westerville City Schools Board of Education and Superintendent sincerely thank Janet Tressler Davis for the dedication, commitment, and leadership she displayed in her role as the Westerville Area Chamber of Commerce President and CEO this date, September 22nd, 2025. Congratulations.
Okay, moving along. Next up, we have reports in 4.01, the superintendent's comments. Ms. Hamburg.
Thank you, Mrs. Meyer. I too would like to personally thank Janet for all of her work. We've had a great relationship. I've only been here just about 1.5 years, but I've already had so many really impactful interactions with you, Janet, and I just appreciate all of your work for our students. And I've enjoyed being part of the Westerville Partnership, which you've taken such a big leadership role with. So thank you, and we will definitely miss you. Would also like to share, it was in our news and announcements this Saturday about our Buckeye Bridge program. I was invited to speak at that announcement. A huge opportunity for our low to middle income students who can earn an associate degree from Columbus State, and then they would be able to attend Ohio State for their bachelor's degree for free. All of their tuition and mandatory fees would be covered. If you're interested to qualify, students must be an Ohio resident, complete an associate degree at Columbus State, file a FAFSA annually by the priority deadline, maintain full-time enrollment at Ohio State, have a family adjusted gross income of $100,000 or less, and this will officially launch for students who are graduating from Columbus State in spring of 2026 and seeking to start at Ohio State that autumn semester. I know we have students who are able to graduate from high school with their associate's degree from Columbus State, and we have many others who are well on their way. So I wanted to share that and highlight this new opportunity for our students, and we're grateful for the opportunity. I also wanted to share, we are sitting on the set of one of our plays for this fall. Westerville North will be putting on Arsenic and Old Lace October 9th through 11th. Westerville Central will be featuring The Movie Game this weekend, September 25th through the 28th. And Westerville South is putting on Les Mis, also October 9th through the 12th. So hopefully you can get out and support our actors. When we asked to have the meeting here tonight, they said, well, we're building the set the night before, but we decided that was okay. We didn't mind sharing the stage with our theater students. So just again, wanted to share that. I hope you can get out and support them in their efforts. And that's all I have this evening.
Thank you. Next up, we have 4.02, the financial forecast. And Ms. Marshall, will you talk to us about this, please?
Yes. Thank you, President Meyer, members of the board. There we go. So we are updating the forecast today, September 22nd, 2025. It is now known as a financial forecast, not a 5-year forecast, and I'll talk a little bit about that. The purpose of the forecast, it's a valuable long-range planning tool. It serves as the basis for the district to be able to sign the 412 certificate, which is required for all long-term contracts, appropriation measures, bargaining agreements, salary schedules, or anything like that. And it also provides a method for the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce and the Ohio Auditor of State to identify districts headed towards financial difficulties. And we've talked about some of those things in the past that they look at in previous presentations, so I won't bore you with all that right now. We had some new requirements for the financial forecast under House Bill 96, which was the state's most recent budget bill. So no longer is it a 5-year forecast. We now file a current year budget plus a 3-year projection no later than October 15th for this year, fiscal year 2026. And then next year, that will be by August the 31st of 2026. And then we come back and update projections no later than the end of February each year with the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce. Previously, we were doing the initial forecast at the end of November and updating it by the end of May. So this is a big change with the timing of when the forecast is done. We will continue to present 5 years to the Board of Education and district leadership in order to adequately plan. We believe that 5 years is required in order to be able to adequately plan for the future. And we have a lot of multi-year contracts that span a 5-year period in order to have some cost savings for the district. 3 years actual information is also included for historical purposes, and that will continue to be the case. The forecast includes the general fund only, so that's the district's general operating fund. And I like to mention that it's really in three parts. It has revenues, expenditures, and then balances and reserves. Just a reminder that the school district's fiscal year runs from July 1st through June 30th.
Nicole, not to interrupt you, but you might want to move your microphone up a little,
Oh, I'm sorry.
especially with the noise
I felt
from the
like I was
storm.
being very loud.
With the rain, I
is
think
very
it's a little
loud,
hard to
though.
hear you. Thanks.
Challenges with pretty much every forecast, but especially this forecast. We are always dealing with legislative changes. State funding has been a big issue. We've done a lot of advocacy for that over this past biennium budget cycle. And federal funding, it has been a recent unknown for us. And this forecast is developed based on the best information that we have available to us today. Those estimates will most definitely change going forward as information changes, but this is what we have today to work with. This is a picture of all revenues. I've highlighted year 2030 because that's not technically part of the financial forecast, but we're presenting it today so that we can adequately plan. Fiscal year 2026, we have funding reduced and further reductions are expected in the years going out. The updated budget bill for school funding still included funding based on what it cost to educate students in 2022. It continues to update our local wealth factors, which make our community look wealthier, which is increasing our local share in that calculation. There's also a new base funding supplement and performance supplement payments that are included in 26 and 27. And so we won't have updated payment reports for a while from the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, but we do have a calculator that we're using for these estimates. We had a one-time transfer in. I just want to highlight this because it looks a little like an anomaly on the forecasted revenues. In 2025, that was part of, we had transferred money out into a capital projects fund to combine with the bond issue that was on the ballot last November to be a no new millage. When last November's ballot issue wasn't successful, we transferred that money back into the general operating fund because we're seeing deficit spending and we didn't get additional operating dollars as part of that. So that is showing as a revenue, but it's not really a revenue for the general fund. Revenue uncertainty, state funding continues to be extremely unstable and uncertain. Going back all the way to 2020, we had significant cuts made in 2020 and 2021. We had a new funding formula that came into play in 2022 and 2023 that wasn't fully funded. The funding formula continued in 24 and 25, still not fully funded. Our funding was significantly reduced in fiscal year 25 compared to fiscal year 24. We're now in fiscal year 26, if anybody's keeping track. Funding formula for 26 and 27 continues to use the old outdated costs, the 2022 costs, and update those local wealth factors, increasing our local share. And this forecast also includes new biennium budgets for 28 and 29, and then again for 2030 and 31. Homestead and rollback reimbursements continue to be up for debate with the legislature. The state picks up a portion of property taxes for senior citizens and disabled residents for homestead exemptions, and the schools are reimbursed for that. And then there was a reimbursement and exemption back that went away for all new levies after 2013 for residential properties and people who lived in that property, so owner-occupied properties. We continue to see reimbursement from the state for those exemptions, but it is continually coming up for debate about whether the state is going to continue to reimburse schools for those dollars. Along with property taxes, that continues to be a topic of conversation with the state legislature. We're very thankful to the governor for vetoing some very dangerous provisions that he vetoed as part of the biennium budget that would have decimated school districts around the state, not just ours. The governor's work group, he's created a work group. They're currently working on some property tax reform, and they're meeting now. I think they're supposed to have their report out by the end of, next week maybe? In addition to that, there's several bills. Last time I counted, it was 17 pending that are being debated by the current General Assembly, the 136th, that would affect property taxes in some ways. when we talk about the decreased state share of funding, so the state looks at our local community, they look at our local property wealth and our resident income, and they compare us to the other 610 public schools around the state. And as we continue to look wealthier as a community, the state says that our community should pay more towards the cost of educating students. In 2021, our state share was 43%. Today, it's about 18%. We're in fiscal year 26. By next year, we're estimated to be around 11% based on the current biennium budget. When I talk about the instability of state funding, what I'm talking about is the state updating this calculation for that state share that makes our community look wealthier, but they're keeping those costs the same. They're saying, what does it cost to educate a student? And then what's the state share? What's the local share? This is a lot of numbers on a slide and a table here, so just kind of bear with me for a minute, if you will. I wanted to kind of highlight just how unstable this is for us. So from fiscal year 24 coming into fiscal year 25, both years used those 2022 cost inputs, but our state share calculation dropped by 7%. So as you can see on this slide, our total enrolled ADM, and I just want to mention, enrolled ADM for the purposes of our payment reports, counts students in fractional amounts. It doesn't include our preschool students. A half-day kindergarten student would be counted for like a half of a student. And as kids enroll and leave the district, it counts kids as fractional amounts. So our enrollment is around 14,600, our official enrollment count. But for the purposes of the payment report, it uses enrolled average daily membership numbers. So our total for the purposes of base funding from 24 to 25, looking at the June number 2 payments, and they update these twice a month for our payment reports, we gained about 99 students, and the calculated funding decreased by about $6.7 million. And then we have all of these categorical add-ons on top of that base cost. And so for special education, we gained about 148 students in that category. And the calculated funding decreased by over $700,000. And you can see what it looks like for the rest of those categories for funding. Now, this wasn't our ultimate funding because after this, the state did a whole calculation on we're only phasing in a portion of the overall funding formula. It got really complicated to put on a slide. So I just want to show, try to show what this looks like when we talk about how our school funding is unstable. This is something that we're dealing with constantly as the state continues to not update the funding formula appropriately with the appropriate inputs. So looking at our calculated state funding for fiscal year 26 versus 25, I know this is really hard to see, so I did this really cool Zoom thing. So you can see for fiscal year 25, which was our actual, we were at about 38.9 million. And this year, according to the calculator that we have available, again, I don't have updated payment reports, it's just an estimate, we're at about 37.6 million. And that was what was in the Legislative Services Commission's estimates that they did for the General Assembly when they were finalizing the state budget bill. So that's a reduction of about $1.3 million overall. That's revenues. Now looking at expenses, the district continues to see increases annually with inflation. We're all dealing with inflationary increases. This forecast includes the reductions that we've already made, and we'll talk some about those. And then it also includes a one-time transfer out as we're thinking about the instability of our funding that we get from the state and trying to make sure that we have programs and services in place without having to make significant cuts for our students and those programs. The board transferred out in order to appropriately reserve funds for certain resources, and we also reduced expenses out of the general fund as part of that transfer. And so just to highlight a good example of this, because you can see it in this line, like capital outlay, a lot of technology and things like that, we're basically zeroing that expense out of this general fund, and we're going to pay for it out of that other reserve fund that the board's created. And the reason why we took this approach is because as part of all of this conversation around the state budget and property taxes and what everything looks like, we had a lot of lawmakers that were suggesting the transfers. This is a quote from an ABC6 interview that aired on April the 28th. State Rep Dave Thomas, he's out of Ashtabula, says that districts can move money from their general funds into specific reserve accounts meant for something like a roof or a school bus. And he said you either should be reserving it towards some future purpose for the voter, or it shouldn't be in your account. These reserve accounts include termination benefits fund, which is basically to account for funds to pay for required severance payments. Under Ohio law, we are required to pay severance payments to our employees upon separation for leave that they've earned and accumulated that hasn't been used. And then also capital projects fund, and that's to help account for various items that we would need under capital projects that might include motor vehicles or anything of a fixed asset.
Yeah, Ms. Marshall, just because not everybody is in fund accounting every day.
Yes.
Thank
you.
So with the general fund, can you just give everyone just a quick overview of, I think it's probably pretty clear, but what that means, and that these other funds, like, we can't just go making them up, right?
Right, yeah,
Would be
so
helpful,
we
thanks.
have very specific accounting funds that we can create and can have. The general operating fund is just that, it's our general fund. So anything, most of our property tax revenue that we get, the state funding, all of that goes into that. Our other funds are considered restricted funds. So it's revenues that are set aside and allocated for a specific purpose. The general account can be used to pay for anything that is a proper public purpose, just like the rest of our funds. But it doesn't have any restrictions on what those funds can be used on. If we want to pay for school buses out of the general fund, we can. If we want to pay for, to build a new building out of the general fund, we can. But this allows us to allocate funds for specific purposes. And as the lawmakers were talking, they feel like if we're paying for some of these things out of the general fund, let's take technology, for example, that's not being transparent to our taxpayers, and that we should have these dollars set aside in a reserve account so that everybody knows that we plan to pay for these things out of this reserve account for that specific purpose. And so that's the idea behind this, I think.
Thank you.
So austerity measures, we'll talk a little bit more about this during the work session, but what we looked at was rescinding that capital projects fund and transferring back the $30 million originally allocated for facilities projects that we had combined with the bond issue. We reduced fiscal year 2025 budgets by $4.8 million. We reduced current projected budgets for curriculum and technology by over $2.4 million. We absorbed over 30 positions this school year, in this school year alone, for a savings of over 3.3 million, and that's an annual savings. And then we eliminated transfer out. We were setting aside money through transfers to the Permanent Improvement Fund for turf replacement to save up, and we eliminated that transfer out of the general fund. As we do with every forecast, we have a lot of uncertainty in our expenses and what those might look like. And I can't stress enough that these are estimates that we have today. But we continue to look at staffing needs, the educational needs of our students, the economy and inflation. State mandates are a real thing that happens pretty much every time we turn around. And then healthcare costs. You'll see tonight the board has a resolution to adopt our health insurance premiums, dental and vision as well. But we're looking at a 13.8% increase in our medical premiums because the cost of claims and cost of healthcare has just grown so much. And so we continue to keep an eye on all of those things. So this looks a little wonky. That's a technical term, by the way. So this shows our revenues and expenses during the forecast period. So we have fiscal year 23, 24, 25 actuals. The green line is our revenues for actuals, and then the projected are 26 through 30. And then the red line are our expenses. And then the blue bar is our unreserved ending fund balance for our general fund. We continue to see a gap in our revenues and expenses, and I do just want to highlight those peaks there are from those transfers that we talked about, not actual changes in revenues and expenses. And then we also had ESSER funds during this time that we were paying for some expenses that were normally paid out of our general fund. We were paying for them out of the ESSER funds, which were COVID relief dollars that we received during the COVID pandemic. And so all of those expenses have slowly been coming back to the general fund over that time. And so that included some of that as well. If I take out the transfers, because it looks a little noisy to me, and just look at revenues over expenses, when we talk about the district is operating in a deficit, what we're saying is that our revenues are not keeping up with inflation and the expenses that we have. And so this just is that same graph showing the difference between revenues and expenses year over year. So in 2025, our expenses exceeded our revenues by 8.3 million. In 2026, this year, we're projected to be around 12 million. And then next year, we're projected to be around 18 million. And that deficit continues to grow without additional revenue or significant reductions in expenses. And that is my forecast presentation.
Thank you. I know we've talked a little bit about this in the past, but for the purposes of this meeting tonight, I think it's important to remind ourselves about it. And I know there's been some conversations about the federal funding that we receive. We were lucky to be able to get that, after they froze it the first day before school started. Can you remind us what we've heard from our state reps about what they're thinking about for the federal funding too?
So we get around $8 million in federal funding, and that money is used for things like reading and math instruction, professional development for staff, supports for some of our students with specialized needs. And we are very concerned. You've probably heard the talk that if they shut down the U.S. Department of Education, they're going to send the money to the state in block grants. And in talking with one of our legislators recently, I specifically asked again, because this has come up multiple times, if we can count on getting that same amount of funding, because we have a lot of things that we are counting on paying for out of that money. And the answer was, let's just say, led me to believe that may not be the case. So just concerned, and I just shared if that money were to be diverted away from our public schools, that those would be additional revenue gaps that we would be facing in addition to the reduction we've seen in our state funding.
And thank you. And in terms of state funding, can you remind us how much we've been underfunded? I think in this slide, you've shown since 2022 or 2020. I know
The state share,
yeah.
the state shares dropped. It would be 25% by this year, and then it's projected to drop another 7% next year, based on the current budget
And
that's been
then
approved.
Do you know that in the terms, I know you've told me this number before, but what is that in terms of millions?
So we're receiving about nearly $8 million less this year compared to what we were receiving in 2021.
And over the years, that's
Over the
added
years,
up
it
to
grows.
be,
It's over $45 million.
thank you,
Yeah.
thank you.
Ms. Marshall, would you mind going back one slide to the revenues and revenues versus expenses? Yeah, so one of the things that I'm hoping you can just explain to people is when you look at those revenues and they look really flat, right? A lot of times people say, well, my property was reassessed, my taxes went up, the schools must be getting a lot more money, but that green line is pretty darn flat. So can you just explain why that's the case?
So it's flat, one, because our state funding continues to be declining. We know what the state budget looks like for fiscal year 26 and 27. We have, so every 6 years, our properties are reappraised, a full reappraisal, and the last full reappraisal was done in 2023. And we've talked at length about that. We're a House Bill 920 district, which means as on voted levies, as values go up, tax rates go down, so the revenue that the district receives remains relatively the same. we don't see a lot of growth on property taxes. We have a small portion, it's 3.8 mils of like around 39, 40 mils that we collect that's called inside millage set by the state constitution, and that never changes. So we see a little bit of growth from that. The other thing that we see growth from is new construction, if it's not been abated for economic development or something like that. So that's our opportunity to receive new growth on revenue, is through new construction or that inside millage. So as state funding, so we have another update year for values coming in 2026. They reappraise every 6 years, do an update every third year in between. We're not projected to see a huge growth in the overall property tax because of that, because we don't have any new property tax levies on the horizon. And we know that it's only a small portion. We're actually seeing, when we talk about new construction, we're actually seeing the opposite of growth on revenue because of Board of Revision changes that happen. Right now, when the county went back and did its mass reappraisal in 2023, how they valued some commercial properties, some of those businesses are coming back and saying, hey, wait a minute, my property lost value because of COVID and all these other things, and they're adjusting, which is a straight revenue loss to the district when those get adjusted down. And so it's something we keep an eye on, but that's why when we look at this going out, if we see growth in property taxes without a new levy, without a new property tax levy specifically, we don't really see a lot of growth enough to make that grow on that graph, especially when we have the state declining revenue on top of that.
Now, thank you. So just like to underscore that, the percentage of the share that the state's giving continues to drop. But I know it's really confusing, the difference, when we talk about millage and inside mills and outside mills, the inside are the non-voted mills. It's about 1/10 of our millage right now that's inside mills. So, for example, on someone's house, about a 1/10 of it is going to increase over time, right? It's because you're collecting a percentage on that 1/10.
Yeah.
The other 90%, you're not collecting a percentage on, it's a capped dollar amount when you look across the district. Now, individual taxpayers might see things go up or down, but as a district.
Yeah, as a district, we don't see growth on those voted mills because of that. But I think it's important to note that individually, you might see a difference in your taxes because your tax bill will change depending on how much your property value grew compared to the average. So, for example, the 2023 reappraisals in Franklin County, on average, residential values went up by 38%. And so what this means is that if your value grew by more than 38%, you likely saw an increase in your tax bill. If your value grew by less than 38%, you likely saw a decrease in your tax bill. And Franklin County said that 30% of people who own homes in our district actually saw a decrease in their tax bill because of the 2023 reappraisals. Now, that means 70% saw saw some of an increase or a lot of an increase, right? And it's just shifting who's paying that depending on how values changed. And I have a whole presentation on that. If
Yes,
anybody's
you do.
ever interested
It's a
in
good
seeing
one.
it. It's very confusing, and I think the whole conversation around property taxes, and I try to stress this to our lawmakers, is that schools have what's known as the 20 mil floor. So what that means is as values go up, tax rates go down, but they won't go below 20 mils. So we're at about 39 mils right now. They won't go below the 20 mils. There's over 400 school districts in the state that are at the 20 mil floor. So if I'm a district at a 20 mil floor, then if my values go up by 30%, my revenue is going up by 30%. We are not one of those districts, but there's over 400 districts in the state that are experiencing that, and people are rightfully losing their minds over their tax bills going up by 30% or whatever it is. And so that's the conversation that I think the state's focused on the most, is that 20 mil floor and what that looks like. But a lot of these districts are districts that haven't been on the ballot for years and years and years. And so it's a tough conversation to have right now, but I think that's why people are looking so closely at this, because of the way the values have changed.
thank you for going through that, and she does have a great presentation, so, everyone, I hear that
If you're ever
again.
interested,
If you're ever
please
interested.
reach
But I
out.
just think it's really important to understand, again, because people think, oh, I was reappraised, it went up, the schools are getting a lot more money, that that's just not the case.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Hey, I thank you so much for that as well. If you don't mind, I want to take us back to slide 9 regarding the unstable state funding formula, because something that comes up a lot, at least certainly for me, is questions regarding enrollment. Are we seeing an increase? Are we seeing a decrease? Obviously, we know that the needs of our students just continue to skyrocket. Can you speak to us a little bit about enrollment, what we're actually seeing here in Westerville?
Yeah, so, so we saw a slight drop in enrollment during COVID, and our enrollment overall has been relatively stable since. So our official enrollment number is the first week of October, we call it the October count. It's a whole thing that's been around forever. That's the number that we use as our official enrollment number. There's no shortage of enrollment numbers if you look on the Department of Education and Workforce's site. So we have the enrolled ADM here that we use as part of the payment reports, which only counts fractional amounts. We also have they use a weighted enrollment number, which counts students as more than one. So if they fall under some of these categories, they could count as much as 4 times a student. And so when you look at our overall weighted student number, we've seen growth in the specialized learning areas, that sort of those categorical add-ons that we're looking at here. And I do want to point out with this is a snapshot in time, and I know we talk about this, but this payment report is updated twice a month, and these numbers change on every payment report. So this is comparing our final payment reports for fiscal year 24 and fiscal year 25, which is where we landed for the year. But if you look at these reports today, it won't look anything like some of this because it changes and shifts. So I'll be able to compare this data with June of 26 data once we get there. I just didn't have that for this current year to compare to. But yeah, it's while our enrollment as a whole isn't changing significantly, the categories that students fall into for specialized learning has grown significantly over time.
So we're seeing growth, but we're seeing a decrease in investments at the state and at the federal level.
Yeah, as the state, I mean, our school funding model is designed that it is a shared responsibility between the state and the local community. And it is designed that as our community looks wealthier, the state picks up less and the local community picks up more. The problem with our unstable formula is that the state isn't updating those cost inputs. We just want them to look at. They've done lots of cost studies. All of these categories, special education, disadvantaged pupils, English learners, gifted, career tech, they have cost studies on every single one of these. They know how much it costs to educate. But all of these amounts, those dollar amounts, are calculated on some arbitrary number that someone's come up with somewhere, not using the actual cost studies that they've done. And the same thing for base funding. They're just not using the cost studies that they've done.
And they're not using them because they've acknowledged they don't have the funding to fully fund that, so they're doing more of this residual funding.
Yeah.
So I have a point of clarity or clarification. I've heard from state lawmakers that schools, I'm saying schools, received more money this year than last in total. But when we define schools, we're defining not just public, but private and charter in the voucher system. So has the public schools received a larger share versus previous years, or is that all going to charter? Is it being divided equally? Are we receiving proportionally more or proportionally less?
Overall, total traditional public schools are receiving a little bit more, but it's like a little over 1% versus private schools are seeing a little over 9%. Charter schools are seeing, I think, close to 7%. So it's, if you're comparing it relative to the overall student population, no, it's not comparable. They're receiving significantly more. And there are several traditional public schools like ours that's seeing a decrease in state funding. And you're right, when they talk about historic investments in education. They're talking about their overall primary and secondary education budget, which includes chartered schools, private schools, JVSDs, like all of the things, along with traditional schools.
Something that we keep hearing about is, why Olentangy seems to be, doing this, and can you talk about what schools we're comparable to, actually, and why we're comparable to those schools rather than, like, the ones that are directly?
Close to us?
Yeah.
So the Department of Education and Workforce has a similar district kind of list that they compare us to, and they compare us to districts based on student demographics that have the same sort of makeup as us. Sometimes it's not really based on geographical area, but just more like how do our students show up to us every day? Olentangy is not on the list of similar districts, but the other thing I do want to say is if you look at Olentangy's expenditure per pupil, because this is one that keeps coming up, we are pretty close to them overall. If we look at the weighted per pupil amount, which is on the report card from the state, they're actually higher than we are. But if you look at the overall expenditure per pupil that doesn't weight students, I think we're just a little bit higher than they are. And so, but they are not a comparable district. And I also want to say when we're talking about state averages and, the funding formula and all that, it does not take into account geographical location for markets and things like that. We have healthcare costs for Central Ohio that we have to contend with. So do the other districts around us. But when we're comparing us to districts outside of Central Ohio, it's difficult to compare to as well. But yes, we're not comparable to Olentangy or New Albany or Upper Arlington or Bexley or any of those.
So the ones in our area that the state compares us to are typically Pickerington, Gahanna, Worthington, and Hilliard.
Yes.
We try to look at those a little more closely.
Thank you. And then I have one other question, just as a follow-up to what my colleague, Ms. Altman, asked about. And you had mentioned that during COVID, the county did these reappraisals and businesses had lost some value during COVID. So what happens when they go to the board and through those reappraisals and they found that they have lost some value? Do we have to pay that money back?
Yeah, so normally if a property owner will file with the Board of Revisions, and we mostly just look at commercial property, if a property owner files with the Board of Revisions, there will be a hearing, a period of time. They pay their tax bill during that time. And so like one case that we're dealing with right now is a couple years out, I think 3 years actually. And it's a refund of about $730,000 back to the business. Because their value was adjusted appropriately so. They have, appraisals that they've had done and all of that. We've had attorneys take a look at it, and we are working on slowly phasing in the new value to help minimize the loss to the school district, which I appreciate them doing, but it's a significant, that's, $730,000 that's going back to the property owner, which it should, but it shouldn't have been collected in the first place. And those rates aren't going to be adjusted because of that, because of the timing, you know what I mean? So.
Thank you. So it just makes it a little bit harder to
Just one
have
more thing.
stabilization in our funding and forecasting, so.
And the other thing I'll say too is that the state of Ohio has made it significantly harder and added a lot more bureaucracy for us to even be able to pay attention to those property values. They just continue to make it harder and harder for us to be part of those conversations.
I don't know, Ms. Hamburg, maybe this is something for you to address, but when we talk about enrollment, right? One thing that, I hear is, well, if the enrollment went down, I'm just going to make this up. If we lost 100 elementary school students, we should be able to cut 4 elementary classes, right? But the way we are constructed as a district, that's not how it works, because those students are spread across a lot of buildings. So can you just talk about how that works and how we pay attention to that?
Yes, thank you. So we have 15 elementary schools, so we actually lost between 600 and 700 total students across the district. We have 25 sites that actually have students. And so when you look at over 1,000 classrooms and you divide those students out, you're looking at less than one student per classroom. So if they were all concentrated in one area, then that would work. But when you're trying to spread them out over the entire geography of our district, it really doesn't result in a significant savings. Now, we do look every year, and we've had these conversations at previous meetings. We look at our enrollment every year, and sometimes we get late move-outs or late move-ins, and we have to make tweaks even after school starts. But we are looking every year to see, could we reduce a teacher at a grade level in this building? Do we need to add one at a grade level in this building? And we're constantly looking to balance that. And I'll just use elementary as an example because we have so many buildings. Having lots of small elementaries is a beautiful thing for culture for kids. There's lots of research around the type of environment that our staffs are able to create when it's a smaller school like that. That's the pro. The con is you're constantly trying to balance staffing across. So if you had just maybe 4 or 5 huge elementaries, it's really easy to adjust third grade staffing. But when you look at third grade across 15 buildings that have third grade, it becomes really challenging to maintain those ratios. So we don't see across 1,000 classrooms in the district huge changes. Where we're able to reduce a teacher because of enrollment decline, we certainly would do that. We don't keep them just to keep them, but it's challenging, and sometimes decreasing them would make the class sizes really, really big in that building, but keeping one makes them smaller than we would like. So we're constantly looking at that piece.
Yeah, thank you, because this is where different districts are different, right? You look at a district like New Albany where they have more of that sort of consolidated grade level schools, right?
They just have one building per grade band. So all of their third grades in one school. So it's a lot easier to just say, we need one more third grade or we need one less, versus we may need one more third grade teacher in 8 buildings. We may need one less third grade teacher in 3 buildings and the rest stay the same. So that's what we're constantly looking at. It's very different from like in New Albany, yes.
Thank you for talking that through.
One final question from me. When we've heard about unfunded mandates, things that pass through law that the school is required to then offer to its students and staff. Could you just give a few examples of what those look like and some things that have come down over the past 4 or 5 years that were expected by law now to do, both from an educational side and then how that affects staffing and things along those lines?
Yeah, so one example we gave when we were talking about the state budget was financial literacy. Like, that was a new requirement that came down, and that was about $500,000 cost that we had to talk about. Science of reading, there was a lot of professional development and different things that went into that, and curriculum development and all of those. The one that I can think of, which is most recent, is the cell phone ban, right? Like, that takes people and resources to make sure that kids don't have their cell phones during the school day.
I could speak to that even in stopping in the buildings. There was one day where one of the high school assistant principals shared that she had taken 51 phones that day.
Yeah.
Hopefully, that's settling down as kids are getting used to that. But those are the types of things that, we all agree that less distractions on phones in the classroom is a wonderful thing. But then when we hear, well, why do you need so many assistant principals? Because they're also trying to do all their other jobs, take care of the discipline and evaluate teachers and manage the lunchroom and all the other things that they need to do. And now they're running around dealing with cell phones because it's a law. We don't have a choice. Mm-hmm. So that would be an example of, you don't think of a cell phone ban as having a cost to it, but it's definitely diverting resources from other things.
Great, thank you so much, Nicole. I really appreciate that. Next up, may I have a motion to suspend Robert's Rules of Order?
So moved.
Second.
Would you please take the vote?
Mrs. Levan,
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine,
Yes.
Mrs. Altman,
Yes.
Mr. Heckelman,
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer.
Yes. Thank you, Ms. Marshall. And now we're going to enter into a work session.
Thank you, and I've invited our three chief officers to join us up here to help with sharing some information. So I'd like to welcome Mark Cooper, our Chief Academic Officer, Carrie Dennis, our Chief Operations Officer, and Scott Reeves, our Chief Policy and Personnel Officer, and they're going to help share some of the information that we've put together for you tonight. And board members, you should have this presentation to be able to follow along, and it'll be up on the screen behind us. But we have been looking at if we were not to be successful with the ballot issue in November, what would that look like in terms of recommendations for reduction? So we're going to talk about kind of the process we went through, what we looked at, and then what we're recommending to you this evening. Obviously, work session, so feel free to jump in as we go, and we'll just try to guide that conversation. So we're going to start, if Nicole, you could go ahead and pull up that next slide. So we wanted to start with just some level setting, because when we start throwing around amounts and numbers, we've talked a lot about different dollar amounts this evening, and we kind of want to put that into scale for you. So just a little bit of information there about our district for those who may not be as familiar. So we have around 14,600 students. We currently operate 3 high schools, traditional high schools, 5 middle schools, 15 elementary schools, which includes 2 of our magnet schools. We have an early learning center preschool. We also have some preschool classrooms that are at one of our elementaries because we've outgrown the space there at our early learning center. We also have an academic enrichment center. This is an alternative learning center that's located across from South High School, where students are able to do credit recovery and acceleration. And we have over 2,000 employees that service all of those students. And then just a little bit of context there on the right side of that slide, we have a $229 million operating budget. We transport 96 total bus routes, which drive over 1.4 million miles annually. We also have 22 total van routes that drive over 300,000 miles annually. We serve over 1.2 million school lunches each year and over 500,000 breakfasts. So just, again, a little bit of scale and size context for you as we kind of have these conversations. And so Nicole's going to give us a little bit of background just on our, I'm going to call it financial validity here for what we're saying, and then we'll kind of get into where we're headed with the recommendations.
Yeah, so I think that it's important to understand that this district really does have a commitment to financial accountability. I spent 7 years working for the state auditor's office, and you hired me, so there's that. But no, seriously, I worked 7 years for the state auditor's office from 2005 to 2012, and you know, I come to work every day knowing that we are entrusted with tax dollars, entrusted by our public to spend their tax dollars appropriately, efficiently, and all the things that go along with that. The question we ask all the time is it a proper public purpose? Does it make sense? Like that's what we go by, right? And with that, the Auditor States Award with distinction, the district's earned it for 13 consecutive years. That predates me. I've only been around about going on 8 years now. You know, when we had Scott Brown here, he said that he'd like to recognize the board, administration, and finance department would like to recognize the board, administration, and finance department that have done an outstanding job watching over every dollar. And that was at our April 21st, 2025 board meeting. About 4% of the public entities in Ohio, it's over 6,000 entities that are audited by the state, actually receive this award every year. So that's a real feat for this district to have been able to earn that for going on 13 consecutive years now. And we, Moody's, our bond rating, I wanted to calculate what the savings was for this, and I wasn't able to get that in time for this meeting, but the district was upgraded from a AA2 to a AA1, I think around 2016, and that is a big deal. That is real dollars saved for our community who pays taxes, as that when we go out and issue bonds, which we did in 2020, in order to build our new schools down in the southern part of the district and all of that. That's real savings in terms of interest rates and investors that are willing to buy those bonds. And we continue to have conversations with lawmakers around them talking about messing with property taxes. Because property taxes are such a reliable source of revenue, that risks what our rating will look like with some of these credit rating agencies. And so, but we are a AA1 and we're very proud of that. We continue to be rated every year. They update that rating and we continue to stay at that AA1, which is just a great thing to have. And then we work with the Government Finance Officers Association. We received their Certificate of Achievement for Excellence in Financial Reporting. They review all of our financial reports every year. They send us comments, and we have a little plaque in our office. But it's a great program that we have been part of for a long time, and we continue to receive that award. We also have a commitment to transparency. I think coming into this district, and I'll credit Greg Bebrance, who was our Executive Director of Communications before he retired. But our communications team, I am the keeper of records according to all the things, but our communications team really does a lot of work behind, and our IT team. Shout out to Stifler in the back for all the email searches I have him do on a regular basis to respond to records requests. But they do a great job of really keeping up with public information requests that we have. The auditor's office recognized the importance of good public records policies and procedures, and they created a new award back in the 2019-2020 fiscal year. And our district has received all of the stars for that stars rating system since its inception. And we continue to be commended by the auditor's office for having such a great process and transparency in our community. So moving on with that, I want to talk a little bit about austerity measures. So we keep getting the question, what have we done? This is a lot of the same information from the previous slide that was in the forecast, but we reduced the fiscal year 2025 budgets by $4.8 million. We reduced current and future budgets for curriculum and technology by over $2.4 million. We absorbed over 30 positions for fiscal year 26, which is our current year, with an over $3.3 million annual savings. And we eliminated that transfer out to the Permanent Improvement Fund. The $4.8 million budget reduction, I get that question a lot, like what did that include? We postponed K-5 math curriculum updates. We postponed replacement of access control cards for entry doors, so like what we scan into the building with. We postponed software updates for routing software for school buses. We reduced transportation costs. We reduced contract services and repairs for facilities. We reduced professional development for staff. We reduced instructional software available for students and staff. We reduced instructional supplies that weren't funded through school fees. We reduced planned school resource officer additions at our elementary. We had planned on adding additional school resource officers at some of our elementary schools, and so we reduced those. We reduced professional technical services, so design services, which helps us design and work on some of the facilities needs that we have. And then we reduced services for software on policy updates, so we work with Neola, and we reduced what those services look like in order to have a savings. We reduced technology purchases for individual devices. So when you think about making sure that every child has a device in the classroom, the one-to-one initiative that we were working on, we put that on hold and reduced that. We reduced purchases for audio-visual equipment updates. So those really cool screens that you see in some of the classrooms, we had planned to try to put those in all of the classrooms, and we haven't been able to get there. We reduced reports that were normally produced to help inform our community about different things that are not required. So the example I give here is the popular annual financial report. It's probably some of your favorite reading, but it's expensive. It's expensive to produce it, and it's expensive to mail it out to our entire community. And so we reduced that from our budget. So those are probably not all encompassing. I'm sure I missed a few things, but that's a big list of what that $4.8 million entailed.
Thank you. When you look at some of the the positions that we were able to absorb over the last year. Over 30 positions were absorbed, which means they were not replaced, most through attrition, meaning when someone retired or when someone resigned. We did not replace those positions, and you can see 7 administrative positions, 17 teaching staff positions, and 9 support staff positions. And to be clear, the responsibilities of those positions were not that we did not replace. Those responsibilities didn't go away. They were added to the responsibilities of someone else, kind of like Ms. Hamburg mentioned with the administrators and chasing down cell phones, that they were not doing something else. Well, when you're adding the responsibilities of other staff members, then the timeliness and the attention to the quality of service that you get sometimes are compromised.
So this is the same slide that we saw on the forecast, and just a reminder of what we're targeting here is that revenue shortfall. So we're looking at what is our current projected revenues and what are our projected expenses and what are those differences? Where is that deficit? As we plan for the current year and the next 2 fiscal years, it's averaging to where we need to be at about a $20 million reduction if we don't see additional revenues. And we'll have to start having that conversation about looking at beginning in fiscal year 2027 in order to make up. And should we be successful in November, the timing of income taxes, we wouldn't see full collections until 2028 with those income taxes and the timing and how all of that works. And so I just want to be mindful of when we're thinking about the deficit that we have, we are required to have a balanced budget, and without additional revenue, we have to start making we have to have conversations around reducing our expenses.
So I think everyone here is aware we do have a ballot issue on the November 4th ballot for an earned income tax that would generate 24.3 million approximately. We are looking at, again, as Nicole said, kind of averaging that out. If we're not successful, so we put the ballot issue on, hopefully that will be successful, but we're trying to plan for the situation if it were to not be successful. So if that ballot issue does not pass and we don't see additional revenue, we need to reduce our general fund expenses. And Nicole's talked a lot tonight between the forecasts and the slides we just looked at on what those general funds look like. We would need to reduce our expenses. So the rest of this is really going to focus on then what would that look like? What would we be recommending to reduce expenses? Scott already shared the list we've reduced. That was only 3.3 million. I say only because we're looking at 20. So when you think about 33 positions being 3.3 million, we've already reduced our budget significantly. As Nicole went over, we've kind of trimmed out what we can there. And so really we're looking at some things that are going to be, I'm just going to say, a little more painful and a little more impactful in the classroom. So the positions that we tried to absorb after the first failure last year, we really tried to do service positions, like Scott said, where people can pick up the work. It's still getting done, maybe not noticing it a lot at a classroom level, but we've kind of cut what we can in that area. So now, as we talk about an additional 20 million, this list has not been fun to put together. So we've had a lot of dialogue about how to do that and what that looks like. If you could go to the next slide. And kind of what we were looking at. So we started with our mission to prepare students to contribute to the competitive and changing world in which we live. And the process our team went through is we started with what are the legal requirements. And I really want to emphasize that because some of the things we talk about are things that I am very passionate about. They're things that some of your children are very passionate about. They're things that we know help children have a rich experience in our school district, but they're maybe not required. So we started with what are we legally required to do. We also looked at graduation and college requirements. So as we go through these lists, you will see that the elementary and middle schools are a little more impacted because there are less requirements at those levels than what we have at the high school level with our graduation and college requirements. And then we looked at, what are the things we have in place that help us remove barriers to learning for students? And then finally, what do we want students' experiences to look like? And I will tell you, there are some things on this list that would, were they to be eliminated, greatly impact students' experiences. But we could not keep them at the expense of something that's legally required. So I just want to kind of say that on the front end. We'll emphasize that multiple times. And when you see this, I want you to know that nobody that gets into education thinks this is what we want school to look like. But this is where we are without additional revenue. All right, so with that, we started with, if you could go to slide 11 there. Mark's going to talk about this one. We started with our kind of extras. So looking at the extra and co-curriculars and what we were able to do in that arena.
So part of what we're looking at here and giving you a graph of looking at the expenses versus our pay to participate revenue from the general fund. Specifically in that chart to the left there, the pay to participate fees currently at the middle school level for the first sport is $90 for the pay to participate. A second sport comes at a discounted rate of $60, and then the third sport at $0. At the high school level, $180 for the first sport, $90 for the second sport, and the third sport doesn't have a cost to it for pay to participate. There's also a family cap of $360 for a family. So if a family has multiple athletes at the middle school and high school level, they are capped at $360 for the pay to participate. If you look at that chart there on the right, you will see that the staff and transportation costs seen in that blue bar for our athletics program on the left, that first blue bar shows that we spend just over $2.5 million per year for supplemental costs for staff, as well as transportation costs. The pay to participate revenue for our athletics is that orange bar. So just under $500,000 a year that we collect on the pay to participate revenue. So there's quite a gap there between what is paid as well as then what is paid out or the expenses of the district for staff and transportation costs in particular. From a clubs and activities standpoint, you will see there that we spend a little over $500,000 a year on supplementals for our clubs, our activities across our buildings, and that does not currently have a pay to participate revenue with that. So there's no cost for pay to participate for the general fund. I do want to highlight a couple of things with these pay to participate revenues or fees. Some clubs and activities do have fees tied to them. So there may be an honor society at a high school level or a club at an elementary level that may come with a fee. That fee goes to the materials, the supplies, perhaps a field trip or something associated with a cost of that actual club. It does not go to paying the transportation or staff fees specifically. With our boosters, our athletic boosters are a huge support to our schools. They may have fees associated with the sports. Again, those go toward other parts of paying for the sports, uniforms, experiences within the teams. They do not go toward paying the supplemental fees, with the caveat that there are a couple of supplemental positions that are paid from the boosters. The boosters have asked specifically if they can pay for an additional coach or an additional advisor for an athletics team. And with that said, that is not accounted for in the blue bar nor in that orange bar. So the blue specifically is the district's general fund, what that costs versus the revenue that comes through from our pay to participate.
We see that with our theater and music boosters as well, correct?
Yes. When we look at needing to make up some of that gap as part of these measures, what we're hopeful for is that we don't have to eliminate teams in athletics, but to do that, we have to look at that gap being partially covered through the estimated pay to participate revenue. So the recommendation that has been brought from this team to the board is that we look at the middle school as a per sport fee of $350. There is no discount for the second or third sport, and the family cap does go away under this proposal. At the high school level, the proposal is for a $500 per sport fee for pay to participate. Again, there is no discount for the second or third sports. It is $500 per sport, and there is no family cap. On the per club or activity fee, we would recommend a $25 per club or activity fee for the middle school level and $50 per club or activity for the high school. So if there is a fee already collected through a boosters association or for part of the materials or supplies of that club, that could still continue. This is on top of that specifically for the general fund for payment of the supplementals for that supplemental pay for the advisors. I do want to note that we are unfortunately in that position where we recognize that that discounted rate certainly helps our students. Potentially it provides opportunities where a student may have only played one sport, but because there's a discounted rate or a third sport, there's no cost, that a student may have picked up an additional sport. We know sports bring so much to our kids from a standpoint of being a part of a team, just the social aspects, having something to do, being at practice and being with their teammates. But with the need to close this gap, that is something that is being proposed here. The clubs and activities, same standpoint there. We recognize that, for some, $25 or $50 may seem pretty nominal. We know that that'll add up for students who then aren't able to participate in all the different clubs and activities that they would have liked to. And for that, we know that there will be some loss of opportunities for kids to just be connected with others. With that said, these are the numbers. I will note with the club's activities, it doesn't look like a very large bar on the collection of revenue. You can see the athletics gap closing just because it is such a greater scale of the supplemental staff and transportation costs because it's a lower cost for the club's activities. Again, we're not looking for either of those two groups to have to make up the full costs at this time, but we are looking for that gap to be closed from what is current.
Mr. Cooper, I have a question. We keep talking about athletics, but this also would include band and theater and any of the
As part of the
related arts.
Yes, it's part of the clubs and activities with those, yes.
Mr. Cooper, do you have a sense of what % reduction we would have in participation in these from any other districts who have undergone similar measures, or, what that might look like? How?
Yeah, it is hard to tell. I will say Scott Reeves has a little bit of history on this and can probably speak to that a little bit better.
Yeah, for those who were around in 2011, 2012, when we had to elevate our pay to participation fees in a similar situation, we saw approximately a 25% reduction in participation of students, especially in the spring, where we were trying to capture students to play a second and or third sport. So we did see approximately a 25% reduction in participation.
So I'm just put together a running total on what the deficit. So our target is that approximately $20 million deficit, and then the change with the pay to participate fees would reduce that deficit by about 1.3 million. I want to stress that these are estimated amounts that we're using here today, and actual amounts will definitely differ. And as we're having conversations around staffing, we'll be looking at doing whatever we can through attrition as we have retirements and resignations and things like that as well.
And that's a piece, we were able to do a lot of that. The state teachers retirement system at the last minute last spring dropped that folks in a certain range could retire a year earlier. That is always a possibility. I know there's a big push to try to get that back to 30 where it used to be. There's also some changes that came out of the budget bill legislatively that will change that makeup of that board as their terms expire. So we look to see maybe some action there. So there could be some changes that happen with retirement age requirements that impact what we're able to do. And that is impactful because if somebody retires and we absorb the position, typically somebody at the end of their career at that high end of the pay scale, their salary would equal about 2 brand new people in that role. So it does impact how many people, what types of reductions we need to do. So just kind of keep that in mind as we go throughout the presentation. All right, I think that takes us to transportation then, and Carrie.
It does. So as we looked at this conversation, we started to talk about transportation. So we currently provide service to our community about a mile distance for transportation from home to school. Sorry. What we would be looking at is expanding those non-transport zones. These are not walking zones, to be clear. These are non-transport zones, which means that responsibility would fall on the families. Also increasing the distance between bus stops. So the services that our community receives will definitely have a change in the way that it looks today, resulting in a minimum reduction of at least 14 routes. So we currently have 96 bus routes, so we would look at least 14 reduction.
I'm sorry, could you clarify what a non-transport zone is for those of us who aren't in?
Yeah, so a non-transport zone is that in which the district is not responsible for providing transportation. That currently could go up to 2 miles, and we currently set about 1 mile, just to be clear. That does not have a reflection on a safe walking route to school. This is a non-transport zone, which means transportation to and from school would be on the responsibility of the guardian.
Just a quick question. It's my recollection that the state does not require us to transport high school students. That's correct?
That is correct. And we had a lot of conversation around that directly. And at this time, given the makeup of our district, we are 52 square miles, and where our high school buildings lie, that would be absolutely devastating to our student population and their ability to get to and from school on a day-to-day basis. But that is also something that we did consider and would be allowable. It's just not something we're recommending at this time.
Okay. Thank you.
And part of exactly what these route reductions look like would depend on what happens with these other items, because all of that affects our transportation too.
So again, just keeping that running total, after subtracting out the co and extracurricular pay to participate fee changes and then the transportation, we have a remaining deficit of about 17.7 million.
Okay, so that takes us into recommendations moving forward. And I will say that as we talk about staffing, our assumption is that these reductions would start with next school year. So we would not be looking to make them in the middle of the school year. If we were unsuccessful on the ballot in November, we would begin working through and planning all of these reductions for the following school year. I will tell you that we did have a coordinator, for example, who took a job in the private sector, and we're not filling that job right now. So there might be positions where someone leaves in the middle of the year and we have an opportunity to realize those savings. And I say realize those savings, but with that also, that work has to go to some other people to do. It's one less person to do that. So with all of these positions, I just want to reemphasize, these are all positions that people that are very busy and doing a lot of work, and so their work would have to be picked up elsewhere. And these would be, overall, we would be looking at starting them for next school year, so that would be the 26-27 school year. We've already eliminated 7 administrative positions last year, or for this current school year, which is about 7%. We would be looking at adding up to another 10 positions. The majority of those would be at the district level, but there could potentially be a few at the building level as well. And again, I just want to emphasize that with those reductions, so if we would be looking at, as an example, an assistant principal at a building level or a special ed coordinator, whatever the case may be, those are all positions that their work would have to go to someone else, and it would impact the timeliness and the level of service that kids and families receive. So we would be looking at up to 10 in administration. And then next up is elementary school.
So just note, Angie mentioned the difficulty of walking through this and coming up with these recommendations to the board and that legal requirement. Having been an elementary teacher and elementary principal myself, very difficult to talk
Mark,
through this.
I'm sorry. It's kind of hard. I think we're having a little hard time hearing. Maybe
Yeah.
others will too, so we can remember that there are other people.
Is that any better? Thank you. Sorry about that. But I've just noted, as a former elementary teacher and elementary principal myself, talking through what this looks like for an elementary student is concerning and quite honestly a catastrophic experience for our schools. But Nonetheless, it is where we are with some things, and the recommendations being that we would propose eliminating art, music, and physical education classes at the elementary level, as well as library media specialists. So this would be up to 44 positions in these areas. Now, with that, we would be looking to then also have to consider the reduction of time in the elementary student day to allot for the appropriate amount of time for planning for our teachers and ensuring that that the students are able to get the work that they need, but the teachers are able to get their time for the planning as well, as oftentimes teachers are planning during those specialist times.
Can you, Mr. Cooper, talk about what is required by law for time for elementary and what we're talking about here?
Yeah, so art, music, and physical education are not required by law, nor are library media specialists to have those. Again, this is I think, kind of an expectation that our community has, and certainly districts around certainly expect of having these opportunities for kids. We know that students get so much out of our art, music, and physical education classes. It's an opportunity for them to, in many cases, shine their light and what makes them enjoy coming to school, quite honestly, for some students. And so at the end of the day, they're not required by law for elementary school. We are required to hold to certain class size limits across the elementary experience, but art, music, and PE, physical education, are not required.
And how much would you're talking a potential reduction of time in elementary student day. What does that look like? in terms of-
Yeah, so currently the state has hours requirements for the whole year that we meet those requirements. We do go beyond the required minimum of hours for the school year. It's approximately 10 to 15 days beyond, 10 to 15 days worth of time that we go beyond the hour requirement by the state. The state used to have a day requirement. They moved several years ago to an hours requirement. Our school day is long enough during each day times the days that students are in session, in that if we were to look at a reduction of perhaps 20 minutes, 30 minutes, 40 minutes, we'd have to look at that number, and certainly we would look at that information for the board, if it is necessary after the ballot issue in November. But there is the potential of reduction of time that then would allow our teachers the appropriate amount of planning time, as again, they get that right now during those specialist times.
Thank you.
And just so my math is right, when we say up to 44 positions, 15 elementary schools, that effectively means that there would be no art, no music, or no PE at the elementary level. Is that correct?
That is correct. We currently have 36 art, music, and physical education teachers at the elementary level. So 12 teams of 3 essentially, and then our library media specialists beyond that.
So some of the buildings share coverage. And again, when we're looking at up to, as we look at those dollar amounts, again, it would make a difference too, as we start looking at this holistically, if we have a surge in retirements or not in terms of dollar amounts. All right, next up is our elementary magnet programs. And so we would recommend that if we were not successful on the ballot, that we evaluate our magnet programming. Currently, we have 2 buildings. We would recommend, due to the number of classrooms available, that we look at potentially combining those, looking at perhaps not offering classes in both buildings to capture some efficiencies and costs of running a building. And what this would do for us is it would reduce the overall number, not what it would do for us, I'm not saying like that's a positive, it's a negative. It would reduce the overall number of magnet seats that would be available overall in the program. With that, we would look at putting those extra, whichever building we would look at not having open, we would look at putting those kids back in their home schools, and we would look at larger class sizes. We would anticipate having to add some sections across the district, but we don't think it would be a 1-for-1 that we could just make the classes bigger. in some cases, but then we would be able to save some of the other positions that are needed in the building by not having that extra building open. So essentially, we would be saving a lot of the administrative office, those type of costs, custodial, et cetera. And so we would recommend evaluating the two locations on where we could get the most efficiency and then look at reducing positions accordingly. We think we could capture up to 20 positions with that change.
I'm sorry, go ahead. Denise.
Yep, thank you. Just to clarify, we have two really incredible magnet programs. One, which last year was recognized as one of the best in the nation. Is that correct? So that's two magnet programs that we're going to have very difficult conversations about. I just want to be very honest about that.
And I just want to emphasize, and I appreciate you saying that, that again, as we look at this, want to be clear that it's not a value judgment on the programming there. It's really about the efficiency and what's required at that point.
And what is the student enrollment between those two programs?
You guys pull that up quick. We have that. I just don't have it in front of me. It's, let's say like, Cheryl might have it quicker. We'll grab it. Just give us a second. You got it?
When you look at the student enrollment of Emerson and Hanby, Emerson's approximately 230. And Hanby's a little bit bigger than that, so you're talking 500, maybe just a tad over 500 students.
Carrie has the actual sheet up. That's right.
So, yeah, I got it. The two together have a combined enrollment of 625. So Emerson at 253 and Hanby at 372.
All right, that takes us to middle school, and I believe Mr. Reeves has that one.
So when you look at our middle school programming, very much like the elementary programming, there aren't a lot of requirements, both from a legal and graduation requirements for that. So looking at up to 31 positions in our 5 middle schools, looking first at the core with math, reading, science, and social studies, and we know that in our 7th and 8th grade, the class sizes are pretty full. And so to be able to achieve some reduction in the core areas, that would mean the elimination of 6th grade teaming, which would allow an approximate savings of about 8 staff right there. Library media center specialists, like at the elementary level. And then looking at the electives, there is a legal requirement at the middle school level for electives that we have to have a career technical option for students in both grades 7 and 8. We currently do that with our engineering classes, our medical detectives classes. So you do not see those up there because we are legally required to have those. But just like the elementary schools, we would consider eliminating music, art, and world languages, which we have Spanish in the 8th grade. And one of the lessons that we learned the last time when we made significant reductions from our middle level is for several years we sat with students having 2-3 study halls every day, and we're looking to avoid that. And the only really way to avoid that is to again reduce the number of instructional periods that we have. We currently have 8. So whether we go down to 7, whether we go down to 6, depends on the depth of cuts we need to make. As well, like the elementary, we would probably look at a reduction of the student day, and we would take a look at the hours that we have. Just like elementary, we're significantly over the minimum hours for the state, but we would look at what makes sense so that we could still endure if we had some snow days, some weather days, or other calamities like that. So
that would be necessary with the amount of cuts we need to make to be able to get our teachers plan time, again, outside of the student day. But having been a former middle school principal, I could see where that was probably pretty catastrophic. First of all, terrible that the kids don't have those courses, but putting middle schoolers in study hall for that large of a chunk of the day is just asking for discipline issues. So I would not recommend that. I think it would make sense to lengthen the time they have in their core classes and shorten their day overall so that we would not be having them sitting idly in study halls all day.
I know this has been talked about before, and I think my daughter was coming into middle school when it was starting to come back, right? But can you talk about a little bit about the length of time? Remember the 2011 ballot, the levy failure, and the length of time it took to bring back that programming into middle school.
Yeah, I mean, it's 2025, and we made significant cuts to middle school in 2012, and we're really just now getting a full slate of courses and electives. We just added courses like World Cultures and Music. The first course that we brought back was what is now called Connections. As we built our Pathways program at the high school, we built electives, exploratory electives for students to be able to take like medical detectives, the engineering, the CSIM course, and all of those very valuable courses. We had a robust music program. We had orchestra, we had band, we have choir, and all of those things. And so we had what was global game changers, and ended up being global issues when kids thought it was a gaming and not social studies. But that was built over a decade. It was very thoughtful. It was a lot of input from staff. We've had middle school advisory committees to help build those back. And, kind of what you destroy in a day takes a generation of students through your system to build back. And we worked very, very hard to have what I think is a really solid program. We had Spanish in the 8th grade for high school credit, but we also brought down art foundations into 8th grade as a choice. And what that did was allow kids, when they went to high school, to get to the higher level art classes and not use all of our high school FTE for art foundations. We brought health back. We didn't have health in middle school, and we brought health back. We expanded PE so that every student would have PE at 1 grade level, and then we had some for choices in 8th grade, and we expanded our art choices. And so, but we couldn't do it all at once. And something as significant as this, having lived through it, and there's some out here in the middle school world that have lived through it, it doesn't come back very quickly, and it takes a while. And so we are very, very hopeful to maintain the programming that we have.
For 13 years. Thanks.
Right, and then Mr. Reeves, you also have high school.
Yes, probably more than any other level within our school district, we have legal requirements for high school. We have to have the staffing so that students can get the minimum credits in the right areas that they need to graduate. We know that 75% of our students are going on to 2-year, 4-year university, and so we want to make sure that our system provides them the tools and experiences so that they can meet the college entry requirements. So when we look at the areas in the core, we're talking across the board up to 19 positions, looking at math, English, science, and social studies. And what that does is, in each of those course areas, we have very enriching electives that we built over time in the last decade. And so you would see a reduction of those electives. You would see an increase in class sizes because there are less teachers to have the courses that students are required, the 4 Englishes, the 4 maths, 3 social studies, and all of those things. And so where that would come from is you would have a reduction of advanced placement courses. You would have a reduction of college credit plus courses. You look in-house, a decade ago, we had no college credit plus courses. And then we built 3 incredible career technical pathways within our high schools, our business pathway, our health pathway, and our engineering pathway, and built on the end of those a lot of courses with Columbus State to have a career technical pathway where students are getting industry recognized credentials and all of those other things. And we expanded the college credit plus into English and to some other areas. And so that obviously would be at the expense of some of those opportunities. College credit plus, a lot of students could still go to a college campus to take some of those courses, but we know that's very prohibitive for some of our students to be able to do that.
If I could add to that, just so everybody's clear, we are required to pay for that if a student wants to go take it on a campus. We are not required to offer it on our campuses, but I will tell you, when I came into this district in spring of '24, I was blown away by all the things that we offer on campus for our kids. And we have so many students who take advantage of these courses. Why would we want to eliminate them? Because we actually, it's free for the kids and the families, but we actually are paying per credit hour. Our kids took 4,372 college credits last year. That's amazing. A lot of those kids are first-time college students getting an opportunity to try that out. But that is a large expense to the district. And so this is one that hurts my heart because we just met with our superintendent's advisory and the kids were so passionate about the CCP, the AP, the IB. They love those opportunities. A lot of them take a blend of different courses within those areas. But they do come at a cost to be able to offer those. So I just wanted to add that piece to what Scott was sharing.
Yeah, and you look at the family impact being even greater when you look at the number of Columbus State courses, almost what we offer on campus in-house. And the announcement within the last couple of weeks of Ohio State and Columbus State that if you have your associate's degree from Columbus State, you go on to Ohio State tuition free, I believe. So imagine, we've had kids almost every year graduate with an associate's degree from Columbus State and a high school diploma from Westerville City Schools at the same time. So we pride ourselves in the opportunities we provided kids, and those are some of the things that we're not required to do on in-house that is really something we're proud of. Elimination of electives, when you look at the number of core teachers we have, math, science, social studies, and English, and the number of credits that they have to graduate, they only need 5 elective credits to graduate. And we've built very robust music programs and art programs, both visual art programs and creative arts and computer science and business programs and all of those things in our languages. And we would have to take a serious look at enrollment patterns and different things that kids are choosing to see what we need to reduce, because at the end of the day, to graduate, they only need 5. And then library media specialist, and it would be a conversation to consider the phase out of the International Baccalaureate program at Westerville South High School.
I have a question around that, Mr. Reeves. So when we say phase out of the IB program, I know we talked about these cuts needing to happen in 2020, in the next school year. What about the kids that are currently in the program that may impact? How would that look?
Yeah, it's a great question, and something that has actually been supported within the court systems of our country is that when students, IB is a 2-year program, they begin their junior year and they're finished their senior year. Once they start as a junior, we are obligated to allow them to finish as seniors. So the quickest phase out we could possibly do is the students who are starting now as juniors, we would have to allow them to finish, but we would not have to take another junior class on next year. However, we have 100, not quite that many, I'd say about 50 students from North and Central who have been administratively placed to South, who are in the 9th grade and in the 10th grade currently, with the purpose of taking the International Baccalaureate program. We, in the International Baccalaureate program, phase out and don't let them take it, and then we put them back in their school. Well, for some of them who are student athletes, that might have an eligibility issue for them. And so you look at maybe an elongated, gradual phase out to make sure that the kids that are in the building for the purpose might have the opportunity to finish. And that's a conversation we'd have to have.
Thank you.
There might not be, you might not have the data on this, but I thought I'd ask, do we have a sense of what percentage of our students are currently taking College Credit Plus classes as a whole? And then maybe what percentage of those are on track for first generation college?
We might have to get you that
Okay.
information. Yeah,
I was
I'm sure we
just-
do,
I was
but
just
not at our
curious.
So
fingertips.
you can take a peek at the 6th component on our state report card, and they do give you a measure of the percentage of a class that did have some measure of at least, I want to say 6, but don't quote me on that, college credits by the time they left. And it's an impressive. I mean, we set a goal a long time ago to have 3/4 to 80% of our kids have some kind of transcripted college level credit, whether it be CCP, AP, IB, or career technical, as we looked at career and workforce readiness. So college readiness. So I could get you that, but there is a measure of that on our
Thank you.
report card.
We do have a lot, and I'll just start out while we're on this topic. And I know that Mark is planning to do a presentation on the report card for you all next month. But the new college career readiness measure just came out, and we were pretty disappointed, as were a lot of districts, with the way they gauged that. So on that measure in particular, you have to take 12 college credit plus hours in a year to count as a CCP student, for example. You have to get a 3 or higher on 3 AP classes or 3 AP exams in a year to count. And so we have some students that do, a lot of our students, and we just talked with them, as I said, at Superintendent's Advisory, who do a hybrid. So they might be taking 3 college credit plus courses and 2 AP, and they wouldn't count for either. So one of the things that's special at Westerville that I've been really impressed by is we offer that variety, so that, as an example, if a kid is really wants to go into a STEM field, you know, they might be taking AP and CCP courses as part of their health pathway. And so they're taking in both of those. And so if you look at that measure on our report card, it looks like they're not taking either. So I just want to point that out. Mark will get more into that next time, but certainly doesn't do us favors on the report card measure. But when we look at what's good for kids and them having lots of choices, we've done a great job of developing things in their specific aptitudes and interests. But that's part of what we're talking about here, that we would have to look at really significantly scaling back.
And one thing I want to articulate, we were very explicit at the elementary and middle school level talking about reducing the student day. We are not bringing that as a recommendation at this point for high school, because high school is much more fluid because we have a significant number of students who have late arrival. We have students that have early release. We have 2 different systems of career centers with which we match up our schedule and get kids to and from. Our career technical planning district is Columbus City Schools, and we have kids that go to the downtown high school and Fort Hays, and we also open enrolled at Delaware Area Career Center. And so we wouldn't want to do anything that would inhibit at least that opportunity for students.
Okay, next up, Mark's going to cover the next slide, which would be other positions across the district that we would want to consider.
So obviously, we've hit there the major categories, specifically administrators, elementary, middle, and high school. The other positions then that we would need to consider for elimination, because we don't get to that $20 million deficit, even with all of those reductions. So we would need to consider our gifted resources and support. Our gifted, we do have some self-contained classrooms at Hamby Elementary School. So depending on how that magnet program conversation goes, there is that potential too of some changes within our gifted program. Other areas that we would look at beyond the building level would be our specialized learning programs, our curriculum and instruction and student services departments and resources across the district. Also technology support for the district and positions that we have for the tech support. Our HR team and fiscal support positions, as well as custodial maintenance across the district level. So a lot of detail that would need to come with the planning of this, but those are other areas that we would need to consider beyond the classroom levels.
All right, takes us back to you, Nicole.
Just really quickly, on the gifted piece, you just briefly mentioned the self-contained class, and it's important we keep talking about what's required, right? And that having a self-contained gifted classroom at elementary is not a requirement. I just want to
Correct.
clarify that. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, the state of Ohio still has the identification requirement for gifted. It does not have a service requirement for gifted students. There are definitely some standards and expectations if you do serve students, but that is not a requirement under law.
$20 million is a big number. So after co and extracurricular activities and transportation and staffing of about $12.3 million, all of that we just talked about, that still leaves a gap of about $5.4 million that we would need to address. And I want to emphasize that these are estimated amounts, and the actual amounts may differ in the future.
Ms. Marshall, maybe can you talk a little bit louder?
Yes.
Thanks.
Estimated amounts.
Okay, so then that takes us to other items we would recommend considering. And there's a lot, we've done some preliminary work in these areas, but there would be a lot more that would have to go into getting the actual costs for each of these. So we have some rough ideas. But we would recommend considering the complete elimination of summer school, which is not required. We've already scaled that back after our last levy failure. We would recommend potentially eliminating that altogether. Reducing some of our contracted services, so looking across, we've already done that in places where we can, but are there other places where we can reduce contracts? We would recommend eliminating field trips. This next one is one that I hate to even say, because we have had many conversations on our team about how do we get to all-day kindergarten that's tuition-free. And that's a goal that we have. We don't have the funding to do it right now. This would be a step backward the other way. Currently, we offer a tuition-based all-day kindergarten that families can opt into the lottery for. We would recommend eliminating that because that is still, Nicole ran some numbers, and we are not collecting enough in tuition to offset the cost of offering all day, even though we think it's a wonderful thing. So we would recommend looking at eliminating that. We would look at greatly reducing overtime. So when do we use overtime? We have lots of staffing shortages. So when we think about our classified staff who make an hourly rate, many times we will have, for example, if we don't have enough custodians that we are able to employ, we might have bus drivers that will work overtime to help clean buildings. They might pick up painting in the summer, those types of things. It might be our secretaries who are asked to stay for evening events and help support, whether it's a curriculum night or some other type of student family event. It would be looking at a cleaning schedule, which we already have reduced our cleaning services. So again, as we talk about the cost, there's a financial cost, and then there's a cost in what this does for us on a day-to-day basis. And we would be looking at a reduction in cleanliness would probably be the biggest one we would see there. We would look at, then on the flip side, increasing our student fees, increasing our facility rental fees. We've tried to keep those low, especially for community groups who are within our boundaries, but we would need to look at raising those. And then Mark talked at the beginning about the pay to participate piece of trying to offset the gap on some of our supplemental contracts, and we were focused there on the co and extracurriculars. We also, we would recommend looking at reducing some of those if our participation numbers are lower. We would look at also, we have some supplementals that are things like department facilitators, people that perform really valuable tasks during the school day in addition to their regular jobs that get paid a supplemental contract. And we would look at recommending reducing many of those. And so our recommendation would be between all those areas that we think we could get to the remainder. So that takes us to our summary slide there.
So at the last agenda item, understanding business on the agenda is this specific list that is being recommended to the board this evening.
And so we would be voting on this list. Are there any additional questions from my colleagues?
I had a quick question on the summer school program. What exactly does the summer school program encompass? If that were going away, what would we be losing?
Already made drastic reductions. We're at this point mostly looking at, this past year, we've mostly looked at like credit recovery. We used to do a lot more with our younger students who weren't on track with reading and math. That's the big part that we cut out this past year. So we have opportunities in the summer for kids to get back on track toward graduation requirements. And I don't know if either of you have anything you want to add. For those of you who may not realize, Scott was most recently the academic person. So that's why he's jumping in a lot on that as well. He's got a lot of that historical knowledge.
Yeah, we actually built a really robust program with the use of ESSER funds. And we had a very, we brought from kindergarten through 8 and we utilized 2 different buildings. We filled them both. We fed kids. We transported them. We didn't used to do that a decade ago. We scaled that back significantly, coupled with the levy failure and the end of ESSER funds. And we just focused on credit recovery at the high school level. We did not do K-8 intervention and summer programming, but we know that to expose students to some academics over the summer mitigates learning loss over the summer and keeps them exposed and their brains clicking on the things that teachers are teaching them all year. And we would just continue to eliminate K-8 and push credit recovery back into the high schools.
I also had a question about the staffing number. So with all of the projected staffing, either cuts, whether it's through attrition or elsewise, looks like 12.3 million is a roundabout estimate of what we would be saving. For some of those eliminations, if it happens to come with, let's say, eliminating some AP programs or eliminating, phasing out International Baccalaureate, are we also capturing any amount in here that we would be saving from not having to, let's say, purchase curriculum materials for those AP classes or IB? Is that captured in here as well? And if so, where?
No, it is not. It would probably come in those other categories. So these are all really looking at the staff costs as we look through there. And even if we, I talked about how some of these things would impact transportation as well. So when we think about the magnet conversation, for example, if that would happen, that would impact our transportation. So there's definitely some cause and effect that would happen across there, and we would anticipate some additional savings. And certainly if we were able to capture some of those, and that would mean less staffing reductions, that would be a great thing.
Okay, thank you.
And I would just say from last year as well, one of our austerity measures was to push our curriculum adoption cycle, and we pushed purchases out a couple of years of things we were not required to do and only bought the things that we legally had to do. So that would probably continue that push further out.
Mr. Riggs, just following up on my colleague's question. So when we say we would push credit recovery back into the high school. So if I was to fail, let's just say algebra, I'd have to take algebra over again the following year.
Yeah, and right now at the high school, if you're a student, you really have 3 choices. If you don't have summer school, you could take that class over again in the classroom. Again, we're already going to be stressed with class sizes, so now you're putting a few more students in. We do have, Apex is the online program that we use for credit recovery, and we do have some mechanisms that we have and are building for students who may be a credit or 2 behind to be able to catch that up, whether it's in a study hall period or if they had early release or late arrival, the opportunity to catch up some credit there. And there's always the Credit Flex option where students on their own can submit a Credit Flex application and independently earn credit on their own time. And so those are the options that currently exist, especially for students who are just a couple of credits behind.
Thank you for walking through that more. Any other?
I do have a question. I'm just thinking a lot about the forecast and specifically different buckets, like our EL populations, or special needs, et cetera, where we know that there is a significant reduction in funding that we're anticipating right now. And I know the purpose isn't to get into specific, who and what, but just full transparency, is it safe to say that we would also anticipate reducing positions even outside of the classroom, like, administrators throughout the district that also support parent-facing roles in the buildings, et cetera, and can you provide examples?
Yeah, we would need to look under, when we looked at that slide of other positions to consider, we would look at our specialized learning program, things that aren't legally required. Many of our students with special needs have certain requirements legally, so that is a great deal of staffing and what is required versus then within our specialized learning program, some of our English language learners, some of those others that are support roles may not be required. We did have an elimination, as you may recall, from our elementary of some English learner paraprofessionals, for example. Those weren't required by law, and so those eliminations occur with the change over this past year. So those would fit into those specific other positions to consider: the specialized learning programs, the curriculum instruction areas, and the student services populations.
Thank you.
And just to follow up on that, so as a public school, we're required to educate every child, right? So we are not going to be turning children away who need special services in order to meet our budget, right?
That's one of the hard areas for us because we have kids move in every day, and Gertie Glass, our executive director of specialized learning programs, she probably has one of the most volatile budgets in the district because she tries to plan for that, but we never know what kids are going to come in and what's already in their individualized education plans. They may need a one-on-one aid. They may need multiple different types of therapy throughout the day. They may need a specialized placement. They may need a ASL interpreter. They may need lots and lots of health issues that come through. And so, yes, we're required to provide those, especially if we already have an IEP that comes with them, which often happens. We need to make sure we're meeting their needs, and there are a lot of costs that are involved there that are difficult to anticipate ahead of time.
Yep. And that is a difference between public schools and private schools.
Correct. Private schools can say, we don't have the staffing available in that area, we don't have the resources available, so we're not able to serve your needs, but we are not able to do that.
Thank you.
Okay, any other comments or questions?
I have one more question. I think this is for Nicole. So $20 million is around what we're targeting if we are not successful in November with the levy. That $20 million, how long will that like mitigate us from being like severely underwater?
So the $20 million is really a starting point if we don't see additional revenue down the road. So I'm looking at basically the average of the 3 years of the deficit. And so if we have to cut $20 million starting next year, we're going to have to cut additional funds the following year if we don't see additional revenue. You can see how that deficit grows over the years, so we have to be able to balance that budget overall.
Thank you.
I would just say one of those unfunded mandates too that we have is that we have to bus kids to private and charter schools, and also have to service them if they need interventions. So that's another example of an unfunded mandate.
Yes, we do provide some of the special education services for any of the private schools that are in our district boundaries. And we are responsible for lots of other pieces for any student that lives within our boundaries. And then the transportation costs are huge for students who attend other buildings.
Yeah, thank you.
And with the transportation for the private and charter schools, correct me if I'm wrong, but even if the public school district is off, or, you know, we have a snow day or ice day, but they are still in session, we still have to have our bus drivers come in and bus those routes, correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
And does changing our transportation, right, like if we go to a larger non-transport, how does that affect the transportation of those students that are at private schools?
So the determination of impracticality, so I bring to the board frequently, or somebody from our transportation team does, an impractical to transport resolution. So if we have students and our non-transport zones are expanded, students in the private or non-public school who are receiving our services would also have their boundaries expanded as well. So we would no longer be responsible for transporting them either. If we're not providing it for our students, we don't provide it for theirs. They're not eligible.
Okay. well, we have to enter back into, may I have a motion to, yeah, reinstate Robert's Rules of Order?
So moved.
Second.
And, we're not approving this.
Yeah, we vote.
Okay. No, yeah, can you take the vote on the Robert's Rules? Sorry. of order.
Mrs. Valentine,
Yes.
Mrs. Leban,
Yes.
Mrs. Altman,
Yes.
Mr. Heckelman,
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer.
Yes, and though what I'm asking is, we're not approving this list at the moment. We're gonna take public comments, or are we approving?
We have public comments up.
Yeah, okay, never mind. Okay.
Can I make a motion? Can we make a motion to adjourn for 5 minutes for a break? Being here 2 hours so far?
Yeah,
Recess.
Yeah.
just a
Just a
quick
recess.
recess,
Yeah.
yeah. So
Quick
may I
recess.
have a motion to do or you made a motion, may I have a second?
Second.
Okay, can we take the vote?
Yes. Mr. Heckelman,
Yes.
Mrs. Leban,
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine,
Yes.
Mrs. Altman,
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer.
Yes, so we'll just take 5-minute break.
Bio break.
Women's is right off that way.
It's 8:03, so we'll be back at 8:08. Welcome back. Okay. So next up, we have public comments, and I'm gonna, may I have a motion to suspend the overall time limit on public comments, but keeping the individual 3-minute time limit to accommodate all of our speakers tonight?
So moved.
Second?
Ms. Marshall, will you take the vote?
Mr. Heckelman,
Yes.
Mrs. Altman,
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine,
Yes.
Mrs. Leban,
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer.
Yes. And the Board of Education welcomes public comment on educational issues of interest to our school community. The board does not discriminate based on the identity or viewpoint of the speaker during our public participation. However, the board president may limit comments that are obscene, abusive, or harassing. In an attempt to protect the privacy interests of our students, the board asks that speakers not identify students by name during their comments. Persons having public complaints about district personnel, programming, or operations will be referred to the process set forth in Board Policy 9130. And finally, the board reminds speakers that their statements should be directed to the board as a whole and not to individual members. Again, each speaker will have 3 minutes to address the board. A timer will be shown on the screens, and Ms. Dennis will call time when the 3 minutes have elapsed. Those that we have on this list will have enough time, will be given the 3 minutes to address the board tonight. So with that, our first speaker tonight is, it looks like 3 people. Ms. Paige Stamen, Isaac Guerrero, and Claire Reynolds. Are you together? Yeah, please approach the podium. Welcome. You can pull it down. Yeah.
All right. Good evening, board members and community. Our names are Paige Stamen, Isaac Guerrero, and Claire Reynolds. We're here tonight as students who have experienced firsthand the impacts of the programs you are considering for cuts. The International Baccalaureate and Advanced Placement programs have been the cornerstone of academic excellence in our district. This year, I've seen classes like AP Computer Science and IB Business Management be cut due to lack of staffing. In a lot of cases, these are the only ways students are able to learn about these fields in their classes. Every year, from my experience, previous IB graduates have come to talk to prospective and current IB students and gush about how much these programs have prepared them for college life and beyond. And countless of my friends have been able to push themselves and expand their learning only because of these programs.
In this district, many students participate in sports, so much so that it has become integral to our school culture. From Friday night football games, to basketball, to to volleyball to golf. I have seen how much school unity and excitement is bred from sports. If funding is cut, sports would become more expensive, fewer students would have the opportunity to be directly involved in our schools, and for some, this is the only avenue that makes college obtainable. Instead, we should look at how athletics are able to bring our school and community together. These programs build character, create lasting friendships, and give students like me a reason to be proud of our schools every single day.
Our many clubs are able to give students with a passion a place to share that passion with like-minded peers. Clubs like Culture Club, DECA, and Environmental Club provide a range of different options for students to find their passion and enhance learning outside the classroom. These clubs provide immense values to students and tangible benefits to our schools. From the clubs I've mentioned come things like the Culture Fair, community and career projects, and a community garden with native plants. These programs not only create the connections that make high school memorable and meaningful, but they take what we're learning in the class and apply them to real life. They provide safe spaces where every student can find their community and develop their unique talents.
So from IB and AP classes, athletics, and clubs, these programs don't just occupy our time, they shape our futures. As you make these difficult decisions, I ask you to remember that investing in these programs is investing in us. The skills, connections, and experiences we gain here will serve our community long after we graduate. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, I have Mr. Todd Lutz. Welcome.
Thank you, board, and everybody in attendance for this opportunity to speak. My name is Todd Lutz. I am proud to be the president of the Minerva Park Middle School PTSA. And it's amazing, as I've observed, how many here are supporting what's going down in November. And I'm still scared to death, even more so seeing these numbers of the job cuts. Because what that's telling me is a couple things. One, if by saying no to levy is one, we're telling everybody in our schools, the students, the staff, those that bust their butt, pardon my French, to make the school the system the best it is, they're telling them, look at that banner. We're telling our students and staff, they don't belong in Westerville schools. You're telling my 13-year-old who has ADHD, on an IEP, deals with anxiety, mental health issues, that by saying no to a levy that we desperately need, and it's every school that's battling budget issues, not just here, you're telling my daughter that she doesn't matter, that she doesn't have the mental health services or what she has in place available to her with the job cuts. And you're further accelerating the mental health crisis that our children and staff are experiencing, which is only getting worse, and that's a national pandemic. So the question that's just been on my mind for a while is, what is it about supporting all our children that the anti-levy people are so against? Could it be because money's involved? I've heard that with past levies, accusations of financial mismanagement, which there was a slide earlier rewarding financial stewardship. I think that's more of a fact. Like, this is coming from state legislators using outdated data, which is tough to imagine, and I'm not the smartest tool in the shed. Is it because you intentionally want our district to be at its best? Look around. I see far more those people for the levy, the students, the staff, the parent council. That's just something I want everybody to consider. This is about the kids. This is not about us and whatever selfish desires we have. I want our school to be the best that it is, and I pray to God that come November that we don't have to take these drastic measures that are going to disable our kids and staff more and more. And I'm done. I just can't imagine. It's a scary boat that we're in the next few weeks. So please get out and vote to support our kids and our staff so our hard-working Board of Education members don't have to take these drastic measures. Thank you.
All right, next up, we have Fardawasa Abdi Sarak, and I'm going to apologize if I mispronounce anybody's names tonight, and I'm going to ask you to please correct me. But welcome.
Hi, my name is Sadok Bashir. I am a parent of 2 children who attend Westerville City Schools.
Could you talk a little bit louder, please?
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
I'm Sadok Bashir. I am a mother of 2 kids who attend Westerville City Schools.
My name is Fardos Abdurrahman, and I have 1 child. Sorry, I'm not much of a public speaker, but kindergartner in the district and 3 preschooler.
Yes, and we just wanted, I took some notes, and I wanted to express that we definitely need to say yes to the levy, because I currently have a son who is on the spectrum. I have a son who is in the 1st grade, and just making sure that all kids who need any sort of assistance or special help require them. We want to make sure that's something that's not going to go away. And also, just looking at the numbers, so to speak, and I'm not a mathematician, of course, but just a raw example. At the 0.75 tax deduction, if you were to make roughly $100,000 annually, that's only $28 biweekly that would be deducted. And I'm sure we all spend that at Chick-fil-A on a weekly basis. So being able to know that that should cover $24.3 million if we all take a little piece of that Chick-fil-A bill and put it towards our students' education, it would be much easier, and we wouldn't have to worry about the state funding. And my next is actually a question. We talked about how the state annually has been decreasing funds. Now, how do we move forward as far as even urging our state lawmakers to potentially change this formula? I heard you guys mention that the formula is outdated. So how do we get them to see that? How do we, as parents, as citizens, as community members, help them understand that this is something that needs to be adjusted? Because every year with inflation, with everything going on, prices are going to get increased and things are going to cost more. How are we sure that this levy, we want to make sure that this levy funds the school and we don't lose anything else? I hope that makes sense. That's all.
Thank you.
Sorry, with the last remaining few moments.
Could you speak up just a little
Sorry,
bit?
with the last remaining few moments, I just wanted to say, like, as a parent who's currently utilizing the all-day kindergarten program, like, that would be, like, devastating for my family. And I know, but just looking at all of the issues and all of the different, oh, it's okay.
Sorry. Thank you. All right, next up we have Lori Kaiser. Welcome.
Hi, my name is Lori Keiser. It's okay, everybody gets it wrong. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. At a time when our state and federal governments are increasingly delegating financial responsibilities to our local entities, we have the opportunity to impact our children's lives in a way that will influence our community for decades to come. Most people recognize that some kids today can be disengaged from the real world, that they are disaffected, disillusioned, and lack empathy for those who are different from themselves. What are the typical solutions offered to counteract this? Participate in a sport, join the band or a musical ensemble, Get involved with the theater department, join a club, find a school subject that inspires you, connect with a teacher that you admire. Studies have shown these activities improve cognitive abilities for all students and are present in our most successful students' lives. Providing access to these solutions means investing in our schools. It means ensuring a diverse curriculum for students where we challenge them and meet them where they are right now. It means providing class sizes that allow students to interact with their teachers and receive appropriate feedback. It means removing financial barriers to participation for every student in our district. It means providing adequate transportation to school and to after-school activities. These things may not be mandated by the state for our students, but they are essential for building a future society that will function effectively. We must protect our existing programming. I raised 3 children in the school district in the past 25 years, with my youngest graduating next spring. I'm a PTA mom, a soccer mom, a band mom, and a theater mom. My volunteer time with grades K through 12 has shown me how this programming impacts our students, grounding them in their education at a time when our culture keeps pulling them away from human connection. I saw firsthand the effects of the failed levy in 2011 when my stepson was a junior at North and another son was in kindergarten. I remember the traffic jams around the elementary schools when busing was reduced. I remember large class sizes and the reduction of specials at the elementary level, secondary level students having multiple study halls due to lack of class availability, and the exorbitant pay-to-play fees for high school sports. We have not fully recovered everything that was cut after the 2011 loss. Right now, North High School band students are participating in their annual Fan Pledge fundraiser to raise funds for items not covered by the district's allocations. Decreasing the current level of district financial support will devastate our music programs. Eliminating middle school music, even briefly, will decimate our high school music program for a generation. We saw that happen. We are still recovering those numbers now. This is true for many programs that support our students. The proposed cuts will have lasting impacts on our community. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Mr. Doug Krinsky. Welcome back.
Thank you. I will speak about the income tax proposal on the ballot in November. I'm against the income tax for many reasons. The group that I created, the PAC we created, Concerned Citizens of Westerville and Concerned Citizens of Westerville.org. We are working to defeat this income tax, and let me tell you why. In 2019, the student enrollment was 15,385, right off one of the district mailers. They were selling the levy at that time that there'd be 1,300 more kids coming into the district. So that really adds up to 16,685 students. However, those 2,065 students never materialized and/or left the district since 2019. The district admitted last fall the projections were wrong. However, they continue to spend money, millions and millions more every year. As a matter of fact, $25 million more last year than the year before, for a total of $53 million as an increase over the 2019 expenditures with a lower enrollment rate. Where has all the money gone? If they hadn't overspent every year like they did, there would be plenty of money right now and we wouldn't have to consider any cuts. And all the numbers we use on our website are from the 5-year projection prior to tonight, or the levy's website, or the mailers the district has sent out. In addition to that, with all that money being spent, why are the test scores on the district's website lower than they were 10 years ago across the board, some significantly? If all this money is going to good use, why aren't the test scores higher? Comparing to other districts, they're lower. 10 years ago, they're lower. And again, all these numbers are on the district website. In talking about the reduction of enrollment, I understand it's difficult to redistrict, reallocate kids, but it's also very difficult to have to endure an income tax, any tax, for working families that can't afford it right now. So, cost-saving measures. I understand the cut proposals tonight. I think you should reconsider, talk to the public about what their ideas are. There's a lot of really smart people in the community, employees in the district, students in the district, and the public in general. Get their ideas and consider them before you just move forward with any generic cuts. I disagree with making cuts in certain areas that you proposed tonight, and I will give you that feedback. But other cost-saving measures, like going to other districts, talking to them about sharing admin expense for these mandates that the state imposes, share your employees and let them all fill them out for all districts. There's other ideas out there that people have. In addition to that, if you want facts as we present them, or straight up facts, go to our website, go to our Facebook page. The proposal on this income tax is higher than the property tax, and I hope everybody decides to vote no. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Elise Edgar. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for giving me the chance to speak tonight. My name is Elise Edgar, and I'm currently a junior here at Westerville North High School. I'm in all honors, AP, and CCP classes. I play on the volleyball team, I act in our school theater productions, and I'm involved in several academic clubs such as WIT, Link Crew, Hope Squad, and hopefully National Honor Society. I know I may not have decades of experience yet, but I do know what it means to grow up in a district that supports its schools, not just academically, but as whole people. And I can say with confidence that being a part of Westerville schools has shaped me in more ways than I can count. For me, school is more than just tests and homework. It's where I found my voice, whether that's cheering on my teammates on the court, delivering a monologue under the stage lights, or speaking up in a club meeting about the world's biggest challenges. These experiences have helped me build confidence, teamwork, and leadership, not just grades. I've had teachers who go out of their way to help me succeed, staying after school to explain concepts or cheering me on at my performances. I've had many teachers who have helped me foster my love for learning and given me the best environment to do so without the resources they always have. I've been in classrooms where learning is exciting and challenging, where we don't just memorize facts, we learn how to think, create, and lead. And I've had the chance to explore my passions outside of class, from late night rehearsals to early morning games, all because these programs exist and are supported. But the truth is, these opportunities don't just happen. They're possible because our community invests in our schools. I'm here tonight because I care deeply about making sure every student now and in the future has access to the same incredible experiences I've had. When we support our schools, we're saying yes to the things that truly prepare students for life. Smaller class sizes, passionate teachers, a variety of classes and clubs, and places to grow, whether that's on stage, on the court, or in the classroom. If we don't protect these opportunities, we risk losing the very things that make students feel seen, valued, and inspired. So I'm asking everybody to vote yes, not just for me, but for every student who dreams of achieving something bigger. Let's invest in our future. Investing in our school district doesn't just benefit students like me, it benefits our entire community. Thank you.
Next up, we have Bethany Kungle. Welcome.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Bethany, and if you know me, you know I'm voting yes on the 0.75% earned income tax for our Westerville City schools. As a mom of a first grader and a 4-year-old soon to enter our schools, this moment feels personal. For me, it's about making sure my kids and all of our kids have the strongest future possible. I want our children to dream big, and that requires us as a community to give them the support they need. This levy is an investment in our children, in our community's strength, and in our shared future. It means higher property values, safe neighborhoods, and families who want to call Westerville home. But most importantly, this vote will shape our kids' daily experiences in their classrooms, in sports, in clubs, in the arts and music, and at home. This vote impacts what kind of parents we get to be and what kind of memories our children will carry. If you haven't been following the decisions at the State House, it's our legislators who have left us no choice other than to contribute more as a community. I believe in our school leaders, and I believe it's our shared responsibility to hold one another accountable to ensure our schools have what they need to ensure all students can thrive. Ask tough questions and push for transparency, but realize that a no vote isn't about district leadership. It is simply an immediate loss for our children. Our kids likely won't remember that we voted yes on November 4th, but they will certainly recognize missed opportunities if this levy fails. One thing should unite us, making sure students have the best teachers, tools, and resources to build a strong future. And at the end of the day, we answer to our kids or our grandkids. They will bear the weight of this decision. Please join me in voting yes for strong schools, yes for a strong Westerville, and yes for our kids.
Next up, we have Katie Munger. Welcome.
Good evening. I'm in favor of the levy, but if the levy fails, I'm hearing that you'll have to make even more tough decisions. And I'm here today to say, please don't cut classes and opportunities in music, theater, and the arts. AI is coming for jobs, and it's going to write our emails, do our coding. I'm a lawyer, and you know what? AI can write a pretty good contract. Yikes. But you know what AI will not be good at? Management, creative problem solving, negotiation, developing relationships, being caring, public speaking. Where do students learn to do that? Where do they learn how to interpret facts and figures instead of just spouting them with no context? Arts classes. My kid has had valuable leadership roles in orchestra and in theater at South. She has learned to stick to things like Tchaikovsky, even when it's really hard, and developing that grit that is so important for success. She's worked with teams of diverse students to put on a show. She's been active and fully engaged with the real world, and I think that's the most important thing. The arts let our kids connect with humans, real folks in a real community, instead of with dangerous people with agendas on the internet. We see news stories of young people being radicalized online. They are desperate for connection, and if they don't get it through positive activities, they'll find it down some TikTok or 4chan wormhole. We need this connection that we get from the arts. We don't want a generation of culturally illiterate students who lack the skills to be human. So please, always fund music, arts, and theater in our schools. Point 2 that I heard tonight, if you have to close a magnet school, please don't close Emerson. It is a historic building, an architectural gem of our community. The classrooms are absolutely gorgeous, and we are so lucky to have that facility. Emerson just has to be maintained as a school at all costs. We cannot throw away 130 years of educational history to fix a current spending issue. And I've heard a lot of talk about cuts. I have a question. Are there any opportunities to make any more money? Rent classrooms and gyms as office spaces or event space after hours. Allow student athletes and band kids to do custodial work to offset their activity fees. Raising the price of all-day kindergarten rather than just flat out cutting it. Fully stock those vending machines. Let's make a profit. For everyone here, please vote in November. Please make your friends vote so that this board doesn't have to consider any more cuts. Thank you.
Next up, we have Samira Mohammed. Welcome.
For patience as I got up here. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Samira Mohammed. I am a Somali American woman, a current resident of Westerville, a proud byproduct of Westerville City School District, and a direct beneficiary of our English learner programming. Because of those supports, I graduated from Westerville Central High School, went on to earn my bachelor's degree from The Ohio State University, and today I work in government affairs and venture capital programming at OSU. I've proudly served at the Ohio State House in addition to advancing international development programming in Washington, D.C. I share this because I am living proof of the impact English learner services can have. Without them, my story and the stories of so many other students might have looked very different. Tonight, I speak not only for myself, but for the many families in our community who cannot be here due to language and systemic barriers. Westerville has a large Somali and Hispanic population. For these families, English learner programming is not an optional service. It is essential to ensuring their children can learn, grow, and contribute fully in our schools. Equally important are the English learner teachers and staff themselves. They are often the first trusted point of contact for families navigating an unfamiliar system. They bridge the gap between schools and parents, making sure families understand not only the language, but also the culture and expectations of the classroom. They create spaces where students feel seen and supported, and they ensure that parents can engage as true partners in their child's education. Without these relationships, many students and families would be left disconnected from the very system meant to serve them. If these services are reduced or removed, it will only widen the educational and socioeconomic gaps in our community, especially for those who speak the more than 50 languages spoken in this school district. That outcome doesn't just harm those students, it holds back Westerville as a whole. Our immigrant and minority communities have played a key role in making Columbus one of the fastest growing cities in the country. We have started businesses, contributed to the workforce, and strengthened the local economy. By continuing to invest in English learner programming, you are investing in the long-term success and prosperity of our district and our city. I want to be clear. I support the levy wholeheartedly, but with your current language suggesting cuts to English learner personnel and programming, you will not get full community buy-in. Families need to know that their children will be supported, not sidelined, and protecting these programs is not just an investment in our students, but in the trust and partnership between this district and the diverse communities it serves. Thank you for your time and for your commitment to all students.
Next up, we have Christy Grover. Welcome.
Hello and thank you. My name is Christy Groger, and first I want to thank you for your work educating us on the upcoming increase on the ballot. I was moved to speak based on the facts you shared this evening, so I apologize that this might not be as refined as I was like as I changed my focus a bit. I'm a parent to an elementary and middle school student, as well as a substitute in elementary and middle schools. I have the privilege of working with students that are not in a typical general education classroom. I sub mostly as an IS, an intervention specialist. The most common way for these kids in our specialized learning classrooms to interact with their peers is to leave their classroom and go to specials. They almost always can go to gym, to art, to music, and to the library. For these 45 minutes, our SLC students are just like every other kid in that building. And all of our gen ed kids learn kindness, empathy, and how to work with peers that might be nonverbal, have limited mobility, or simply aren't at the same educational level. These specialized classrooms have accommodation materials for all the kids that need them: headphones, pencil grips, and sensory-friendly art supplies, to name a few. As these kids get older and into the middle school, some of our SLC students are in choir. They are in drama club and other after-school activities. So while it is easy for some to think that eliminating these fun classes and activities is not a big deal, I assure you that for our most vulnerable population of students, it is truly a big deal. It is how they connect, it is how they thrive, it is how they maintain friendships with their peers. I watch every day all students use these times as specials to be inclusive and to embrace different passions that make them feel empowered. This time allows them to take mental breaks and find so many reasons to smile. I urge all of Westerville residents to think about all of our students and their needs. Please vote yes for the increase. Please allow all of our students to continue to engage, to be inclusive, and to learn that differences are what make us unique. This is a time to teach our own children and grandchildren that giving to public schools matters to every student. Thank you.
Next up, we have Summer Perella. Did I say that right? Summer Perella? And then, oh. Are you Summer? Okay. You were like, okay, we'll move along. Apologize. It's hard for me to read this handwriting, so I apologize if I say it wrong. Salih Narsama? And please correct me. I have the worst handwriting, but
Ironic considering what I'm about to say.
I'm sorry?
I said it's ironic considering what I'm about to say.
Could you move the mic a little bit closer? Thank you.
There we go. Hello, everyone. Thank you, Westerville City School Board, for giving us the opportunity to speak. My name is Salih Warsama. I graduated high school at Westerville Central and also graduated at Ohio State University. And although I'm not a parent, I do have 2 cats at home, so maybe I can claim that they go to Westerville Kitty schools. Sorry, I just had to. Jokes aside, I am voting yes on the levy because kids should have the quality education that both parents and students signed up for, and I'll give you an example. I used to be a terribly slow typer and had pretty bad online literacy as a kid, until I took an elective called 21st Century Tech Skills at Central. It was a small class as it wasn't very popular, and there were talks that it was going to get removed, but those were rumors. When I took it, I went from forgetting where letters are on the keyboard to typing like a reporter or journalist. My WPM shot up a whole 20 words. Not only that, I understood how to navigate the internet much better. To give you an idea of how much this has impacted me, I hate writing on paper because nobody can read my handwriting. It's terrible, or at least I used to think that it used to be terrible, but that your pronunciation was a wake-up call. And in college at OSU, my laptop was my best friend because I typed out my notes every single class. In fact, in my UX research course, my Google Docs notes for that class was 32 pages long. That's not all. Another course I owe a lot of my success to is AP Language and Composition. My teacher, Mr. Painter, who taught our class in his last year before retiring, made it a memorable one. He made us write at least one essay every single week, and he made us work on them every single day. At first, I hated it. Who wouldn't? At least he's funny, I would always say, before considering dropping it. But after finishing that course, and even after I graduated high school, writing essays was a breeze. People often ask me for help on their essays, considerably often, including my own older sister. Electives and AP courses like that teach important life skills, and teach them well. So that's why I'm voting yes to keep them funded. I think people are rightfully worried about the cuts being suggested, and I would strongly reconsider the areas being put forward, particularly the areas that the great people who spoke before me. Thank you.
Well, Molly, apologies for not being able to read your handwriting, but nobody can read mine either. So next up, I think this is Nand Bunberg? Is it David? Okay, I couldn't tell, because there's it does look an N. It looks like an N. Welcome.
Members of the board, thank you for this time to speak. My name is David Voderberg. I do not envy you the choices going forward should the worst come to pass. I have a daughter at McVeigh Elementary School and a son who is looking forward to going to school. He asked me this afternoon, when does he get to go? And I looked at him and I said, next year, buddy. But without this levy, the schools may not look like what his sister experienced and the support programs that allowed her to turn around and become a successful student. They may not be available. I hope as a father that the Westerville schools remain as we have known them. I want the levy to pass, and I hope it does. Thank you.
Well, hopefully I'm not on a roll. Next up is Mohammed Haji. Ah, thank you.
Good evening, Westerville Board and constituents here. First of all, I would like to thank you guys for the opportunity for allowing me to speak. There's a couple things I really want to hit on. And one thing that was kind of reiterated was the 2011 tax levy. Well, during that time, I was actually a student here at Westerville North, And at the time, there were some electives that I was looking forward to taking the following year, and unfortunately that, did not come to pass. Those classes were cut. There was also larger class sizes as well, which definitely impacted a lot of the students. And so a couple of the courses that I managed to take, or that I, thankfully had the opportunity to take, were AP Government, right, AP Physics. I was able to take a personal finance and a sports history class and some electives. And seeing these electives and coming into school, I look forward to going to school because I enjoyed taking some of these classes, right? With Mr. Pointer was one of my favorite teachers, right? He was a PE teacher, but also taught that sports history class. And I'm a massive sports fan, so I thought it was really fun. But these are opportunities that unfortunately, I don't have any children, but I know, parents here do, and some of their children may not be able to see or have the opportunity to take. And I also think the CCP, the college courses that are provided here, I think those are wonderful opportunities for individuals, for students really, to be able to take college credit courses and to be able to kind of get a jump start on their college education. And one thing that I definitely want to also mention is, some of the particular staff positions that I think that may be cut if the levy isn't passed. And some of that could be guidance counselors. And I think I want to mention, some of the guidance counselors here, where how impactful they were in being able to not only help me apply for university, but also help me make sure, try to take advantage of any grants or financial aid that was, available to me at the time. And thankfully, I managed to, graduate from The Ohio State University, and I still live in the Westerville, district. I live maybe 15 minutes from where my mom lives, here in Westerville, and I hope to, hopefully my children in the future be able to continue, hopefully having some of these opportunities. But I just do want to reiterate just one last time that I am in favor of the levy. I will vote yes, and I hope you all do too. Thank you.
All right, next up we have Jessica Piscini. Was I close? Buscemi? Okay. He's my colleague for supporting me.
Is it Mohammed? Thanks for the shout out, because I'm a school counselor. Thanks for the shout out. Thanks for the shout out. Hi, I'm Jessica Buscemi. I live in Westerville. I'm an alumni of this school we're in right now. I have 2 children, an elementary school child and a middle school child. I'm a school counselor in a neighboring comparable district that was mentioned prior to this. And so I just want everyone to know, I think most of us are in favor of this levy, except for Doug, but he left after he said his comments. So I'm going to say most of us are in favor of schools. Also, test scores do not determine intelligence. But I'm just going to say, as a resident, and this is my plea for you guys, we can only do so much as parents. And we all know, as working adults and as busy professionals, we get a lot of information thrown at us. Doug was the only one interviewed over there. Not sure why. So I'm having a hard time with working in a different district where we just passed a levy by a small margin, but we were pounding the pavement. We were at every door. We were knocking on every business. We had signs everywhere. And I live literally right across, in Uptown. And I've seen 4 signs. I have seen very little stuff for Westville City Schools. As a parent, I get the emails. The emails, we all know, we see them on Saturdays, maybe Sundays. We're not getting the information that we need, I think, and my plea to you tonight, and that's why I came tonight, please spread this information like wildfire. I don't know what we're doing. I signed up for a text campaign. I still haven't gotten any information about it. So I'm hoping that we can get this out because my friends, my neighbors, especially people who don't have children in school, know nothing about this levy. I work with 2 teachers who have children, little children in Westville City Schools, but they work in my district. And they didn't even know this was on the ballot. They didn't even know this was coming up. I feel like in the November levy, and I know this is a thankless job, guys, so I'm speaking with love to all of you and to everybody who works in the district. We didn't get anything. Nobody knew anything. It was crickets. I think that's why it failed. I don't think we had a lot of information out there. My neighbors, I live with a lot of people who are retired and their children no longer go to Westville City Schools, so they care, but they're not in the information. And so I'm pleading to you that we figure out a way between now and November 4th to pound the pavement. And it can't just be those people in red shirts that work for this district. It cannot just be the educators. It has to be civilians. It has to be these students. It has to be like, we all know we're all voting for it, most of us, right? We need to be out there. So if there's anything that we can push, not just through Facebook, because I'm not on Facebook, and a lot of people my age are not on Facebook anymore. We need to have something out there. And that's it. Thank you so much. Have a great day.
Next up, we have Jacqueline Fraley. Welcome back.
Okay, here we go. One of the reasons many of us moved to Westerville was because of the community. One of the things I love most about this community is it is supported and invested in public education. This investment has never been more important as our legislatures are slashing funds from public education. School has always had to increase revenue to keep pace with growth and inflation. This is no different. There has been the ask, where has the money gone? The answer is simple. It has gone to our students. It is clear by the fiscal reports that our tax dollars have been spent responsibly. The cost of everything from student lunches, staff health care premiums, and even basic utilities have increased dramatically since 2019. Very few of us could maintain the same standard of living if we lived on our 2019 income. Our school district is no different. Our school district spends thousands less than other higher performing school districts per student, and people wonder why our scorecard is slipping. If this levy fails, I would like to share how it would affect my daughter, who is currently in 2nd grade at Hanby. Longer bus routes. My daughter's current pickup time is 6:45 in the morning. On the day she has to take the bus, she has to get up at 5:55 in the morning. I can't imagine if the bus routes were any longer. Loss of the magnet program would not only force my daughter to change schools, her friends, but also to learn to adapt to new teaching methods because the magnet programs teach differently. The loss of the self-contained gifted program, pushing gifted students into general classrooms and taking away an environment developed for them, and the advanced ways they learn and the augmentation given to them to continue to grow instead of them becoming stagnant in general education classes. Lastly, her favorite classes are music, art, and PE. They're the only classes I hear about when she comes home at the end of the day. The loss of these specials would devastate her. The No for Westerville group has stated objections to the planned expenses in areas like technology. They state older laptops are adequate. However, they forget about planned obsolescence. This laptop is 7 years old. 2 years ago, I was unable to upgrade to the latest software, and now I'm unable to use some of the programs that require newer software. My daughter's peers in other districts are given laptops to work with learning programs at home. My daughter is not. We are fortunate enough to have the money to purchase her a device that allows her to access these programs, but there are other families in the districts who cannot. This lack of technology at home greatly impacts scores, especially in our lower socioeconomic neighbors. Those leading against the tax state they know this money could be managed better, they know how to do it, and yet none of them came forth to run for the school board to help fix the problems or to help plan for the cuts that will need to happen. And the speaker today didn't even stay to hear the other side. If this tax fails and resources are cut, overall growth in Westerville would decrease. I am proof. I choose to live here, and one of the reasons was the education my daughter would receive. If this district funding fails and options to my daughter decreases, I will have to consider moving to a school district that can offer her a more well-rounded education that she deserves.
And our last speaker of the night is Mr. Kevin Hoffman.
Good evening, members of the Board of Education. Hope you can hear me okay. My name is Kevin Hoffman. I am a resident of the district and have been so for the last 44 years. I have unfortunately the opportunity to sit in your seats in previous times. You've done a good job tonight, and thank you for the transparency that you've shown. We understand that this is a difficult task and antithetical to the mission of this district. And we appreciate that you do what you need to do to make sure that this community understands the implications of decisions second to address a previous speaker, if I may. You know, you just got to look for the facts, folks. And the facts are this. In the last 6 years, the inflation has increased by 25%. But we all understand it because it's hit us all, just like it's hit this district. You've already told us that there's been a reduction in state revenue. We've seen that local revenue has been flat. We've seen an increase in educational diversity, special education, English language learners, economically disadvantaged students, gifted students, all who need additional services to meet their special needs. The need is here, the need is now. This is why we have to do what we're doing tonight. As I said, tonight's session, I understand the information that you shared, but I'm here to ask our community to make this conversation moot. I am here to advocate for this community to vote yes for the Westerville school ballot issue on November 4th, so the district can continue to execute on its mission to prepare students to contribute to the competitive and changing world in which we live. To this community, I remind you that you are being asked to vote on an earned income tax. An earned income tax that does not affect Social Security, retirement income, investment income, or disability income. Not a property tax. This board heard the concerns and provided a pragmatic alternative. Election day is 43 days away. Early voting starts in 15 days. To the voters in this community, I wholeheartedly encourage you to vote yes for Westerville schools. Thank you for the opportunity to be with you tonight. I think it's now time for you to resume your previously scheduled meeting. Thank you. Good night.
All right. Well, that concludes the public comments. Moving along to 9 board meeting minutes. May I have a motion to approve the minutes of the regular Board of Education meeting held on Monday, September 8th, 2025?
So moved.
Second. Any changes needed? Questions? All right, Ms. Marshall, will you please take the vote? Mr. Hartman?
Yes.
Mrs. Summer? Yes. Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Abstain, I was absent.
Mrs. Meyer? Yes. Moving on to financials, may I have a motion to approve the financial report and investments for August 2025?
So moved.
Second. Ms. Marshall, will you please talk to us about this? Ms. Lebo. Can you talk into?
Oh, sorry, gotta get closer. Sorry, I was looking at something. All right, we're going over the August 31st month-end monthly financials. For general fund, we have year-to-date receipts of $78.6 million and year-to-date expenditures of $36.2 million. Just a reminder, our fiscal year starts July 1st, so August is the second month of our fiscal year. And then we ended with an unencumbered fund balance of $145.6 million. For all funds, we had year-to-date receipts of $95.2 million, year-to-date expenses of $50.3 million, with an unencumbered fund balance of $241 million. And there were no changes related to investments there.
Any questions or comments? All right, can you please take the vote?
Ms. Altman?
Yes.
Ms. Libby? Yes. Mr. Hartman?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine? Yes. Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. And may I have a motion to approve the insurance rates for medical, dental, and vision insurance for calendar year 2026?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Marshall, I know you talked a little bit about this, but will you talk a little more about it?
Yes, thank you again. So our district, we are a large employer. We are self-insured for our medical insurance, and we have an insurance trust committee that's made up of representatives from our different employee groups and administrators, people in my office, people in HR's office, and we work with our broker, Arthur Gallagher and Associates. Maggie Neely is actually who we work with directly. She attends all of our meetings. And we work with underwriters at Gallagher to develop rates for our self-insurance plans. We do have stop-loss insurance. We are part of a council of governments that limits our risk for high we continue to see the cost of healthcare rising, especially in the central Ohio market. There's lots of different studies around. You can see that cost of healthcare in central Ohio is much more expensive than a lot of other areas outside of central Ohio. And so with that, we are recommending with the underwriter, the numbers that the underwriters presented, a 13.8% increase in our medical premiums. Again, we're self-insured, so that goes into the self-insurance fund, which we pay claims out of. I think it's important to understand that when the plan experiences costs, it impacts everyone, and that's when we see those premiums raise. And so that's what you have before you. This is the total amount. There is an employee and employer split based on our employee contracts that we have. We also have dental and vision coverage, and those rates are remaining the same as the previous year. So it's just the medical insurance that we're seeing a change in. And we have open enrollment starting on October 1st for the plan year that starts January 26th. So we'll be starting that with sending information out to our employees here coming soon.
Any questions?
I'm sorry if you mentioned this and I missed it. What is the increase percentage-wise?
It's 13.8%.
13. Thank you.
Any other? Would you please take the vote?
Mrs. Legan? Yes. Mr. Ackerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. And may I have a motion to approve the financial forecast as presented?
So moved.
Second. Would you talk to us about this too, please?
So this is what I presented to you earlier this evening. So once this is approved, again, just a reminder, I will file the current year budget, which is what the first year of the forecast is, fiscal year 2026, plus 3 years of projections with the Ohio Department of Education and Workforce, along with the assumptions as required.
And then we talked a lot about it. Any other questions? All right. Would you please take the vote?
Mrs. Almond?
Yes.
Mrs. Levan? Yes. Mr. Ackerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. And may I have a motion to approve the revised appropriations for fiscal year 26?
So moved.
Second.
And Ms. Marshall, will you talk to us about these?
Yes, thank you again. So we are adjusting the general fund appropriations with the forecast update. We have an increase for the appropriations in our termination benefits fund. As we've seen changes in the retirement system, we're seeing those severance payments come in a little bit higher than anticipated. We also have some allocation increases for auxiliary services. So that's state funding that goes to private schools that runs through us that we are required to administer. And then we have some allocation changes from some grants in these appropriation adjustments. And so these will be our amended permanent appropriations and will get filed with the county with your approval.
Any questions or comments? All right, seeing none?
Mr. Eckelman?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Levan?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. And may we take the personnel consent agenda item? All right. May I have a motion to approve the personal consent agenda 11.01 through 11.9?
So moved. Second.
All right, welcome, Mr. Reeves.
Thank you. And good evening, members of the board. I would like to present to you for your consideration tonight's personnel consent agenda. Along with the regular action items in tonight's agenda, there are a couple of items to be noted. Regarding resignations, we have 5 classified and 2 licensed resignations for the board to consider this evening, as well as a small number of employees resigning from their supplemental contracts and advisory positions. Leave of absences and contract status changes. We have 2 leaves of absences for approval and our typical classified contract status changes for the various schedule changes that some of our classified employees undergo. We have a single one-time pay for Project Lead the Way training, which are our foundational courses of our high school career pathway programs. We are eager to recommend the hire of 6 new classified employees, and the board will notice several rescinded supplemental contracts which come from those who held the contract previously but have declined to continue with that contract this year. And retirements. The board has 4 licensed retirements to approve this evening. Bradley Blankenship will be retiring from Blendon Middle School after 32 years as a visual arts teacher in the district. Marianne Blankenship will be retiring as a first grade teacher at Charrington Middle School. Marianne has served the Westerville City Schools for 29 years, and their retirement letter came in the same envelope. Matt Reese will be retiring after 31 years of service teaching social studies, currently at Westerville South and the Academic Enrichment Center. Tamara Salzman is retiring as an English language arts teacher at Walnut Springs. She is actually retiring on March 1st, 2026, after serving Westerville schools for 28 years. And all told, these 4 long-serving educators served Westerville City Schools for 120 years. And from the spring of 26, when they will retire, the collective service of our retirees would take us back to the year 1906, when Ohio's own Orville and Wilbur Wright received a patent for what they called their flying machine. The Great San Francisco earthquake leveled the Bay Area city, and by visiting Panama, Teddy Roosevelt became the first sitting president to visit another country. Devil's Tower in Wyoming, brought to the world in the blockbuster movie Close Encounters of the Third Kind, became the nation's first national monument. And back here at home, 1906 marked exactly 100 years remaining that Westerville would remain dry. And I will take any questions you may have on the consent agenda.
I learned some new history tonight. Any questions or comments?
That's an incredible number of years. Yeah, so just great thanks to all these educators. They do such amazing things every day. Just on a little personal note, 2 of my children have Mr. Blankenship for visual art. Just an incredible teacher, like they all are. So thanks to them all.
I echo that. All right. Ms. Marshall, will you take the vote? Thank you.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mr. Eckelman?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Lubian?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. Next up, we have old business, and may I have a motion to approve? To approve policy 5223, release time for religious instruction during the school day. So moved.
Second.
Any comments or questions?
Yeah, actually, I do. So this one's a challenge in that if you go and actually read the legislation that requires us to have this policy, in, I guess, my opinion, there's not a great definition of a sponsoring entity and religious instruction. And I know that that's something that, we have looked into, and there's probably not a lot we can do about it, but if ever there's an opportunity for those to be more clearly defined, either by the district or by the legislature, I would encourage that to happen. Thanks.
I had 2 questions. One is there anything in this legislation that prohibits us from defining what a sponsored entity is? Is it enumerated in the legislation that we cannot?
The way that you pose the question, there is nothing in the legislature that, the
Legislation.
long night, that prohibits us from defining it. However, if an organization does not meet our definition, that does not allow us to prohibit them from having release time for religious instruction for our children if they meet the state's and the legislation's 6 requirements for that organization.
And would there be anything in the legislation that would prohibit us from qualifying an organization to ensure the legitimacy, such as sending us a letter or some type of authorization that we can basically say, hey, it's not just somebody out there who says they're an entity and we have no way to verify that?
That's a great question.
Mr. Reeves, can you?
I'm sorry. That's a great question. But no, that is not within our authority to do. The only requirement that an organization has is they meet the 6 requirements, which since I've mentioned it twice, I'll outline that for the community. The 6 requirements for an organization to enact religious release time for religious instruction is they must have parents' written permission. So the onus has really been put back on the parent to vet who they let their child release to. The sponsoring entity maintains attendance records available to the school. Transportation is the responsibility of the sponsoring entity or the student's parents. The sponsoring entity assumes all liability of the student. No public funds or public school personnel are involved in providing the instruction. The student is responsible for missed work. So kind of there's not even a mention in the legislation of an identifier for the organization to be.
Does the entity, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No,
Does the
you're
entity
good.
report to us for if we request attendance, as you mentioned? Right? They are required. So do we have we already outlined what our schedule of reporting is, for example? Like you must report every week with all this information back to us, or is that still yet to be determined?
No, they've actually, we have a sponsoring entity in Westerville that has already begun our release time, and we have worked out with them both attendance for them and attendance for us, and we share that with every instance. They meet with students weekly, and we share attendance each time.
And with that policy, I'm assuming we have this written as a policy that, so for example, if another entity comes along that isn't this entity that we're currently working with, we have it as policy that these are our requirements that match the state. We have that as a written policy.
We have the actual specifics of how we implement that policy in our guidelines.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to confirm and thank Mr. Reeves. So I did ask him to reach out to our attorney and just, so we had our interpretation, but we wanted to get her interpretation as well. So you were able to confirm all that with our attorney?
Yes.
Correct?
Thank you for looking into that. Any other comments or questions? All right, would you please take the vote, Ms. Marshall?
Mrs. Levan?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mr. Heckelman?
No.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. All right, next up we have 12.02. May I have a motion to approve policy 6830, audit? So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion about this one? All right, seeing none, would you please take the vote?
Mrs. Levan?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mr. Heckelman?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. Next up, we have new business, and 13.01 is the first reading of policy 2266. We had some questions raised about it. It's the non-discrimination on the basis of sex in education programs or activities. So we're gonna hold that one for now and work through some of those questions, and then we'll talk about bringing it back. So next up we have, I'm gonna take these three all at once since I know that they all are the same. 13.02 to 13.04, these are the first reading of policy 1623, 3123, and 4123. And these are about section 504, ADAD, prohibition against disability, discrimination, and employment. Welcome, Mr. Reeves.
Thank you. And as you said, for efficiency, we are going to bundle the policy 1623, 3123, and 4123 together, as all three of the policies and changes are the same. In our policy system, the numbering system identifies the employee group. 1623 is for administration, 3123 is for professional licensed staff, and 4123 is for classified staff. The policy changes are, for the most part, purely grammatical. For example, changing the words his/her to the phrase the employee. The only change of substance is changing the address of where to file civil rights complaints based upon disability, IEP 504 complaints, from an address in Cleveland to an address in Washington, D.C. that is listed in our policy. Again, all three policies read the same and make the same recommended very small grammatical changes.
Any questions or comments? All right, well, thank you so much. Next, we have recommended action, standing business, and 14.01, some fun stuff for the night, donations. We really just appreciate all of our community members and the donations. But Ms. Marshall, will you please talk to us about this? Oh, yes, thank you. May I have a motion to approve the donations as presented? I get so excited.
Second.
Thank you. Now you talk to us about this.
Yes, of course. So we have an additional donation to credit towards fiscal year 2025. So it's $13,815, which brings our grand total for fiscal year 2025 donations to $400,371.56. That is amazing. Very thankful for our generous community and all of the support that they provide. We also have a current request for fiscal year 2026 donations of $6,346.24. Our grand total for fiscal year to date 26 is $23,887.72. The total donations to approve today are $20,161.24 from our amazing community.
And just echo those. Really great. Thank you. We appreciate our community so much.
Sorry, I have a quick question, Nicole. If one would like to donate, how does somebody go about doing that?
They can work directly with their building. They have all of the donation forms and everything there, and they're always happy to accept donations.
Okay, amazing. Thank you.
And if it's a school lunch and just in general, I know that sometimes we have people that just generally donate to the district. Do they work through?
Yeah, they can work with the food services department, and anyone's always welcome to contact my office, and we can point them in the right direction as well.
Great. Thank you. All right, will you take the vote?
Mr. Heckelman?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Ottman?
Yes.
Mrs. Lieband?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. And may I have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing the negotiation and I can't even talk tonight. Execution of an agreement with Osborne Engineering to serve as the design professional for the FY26 HVAC projects. Oh my goodness.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Welcome, Ms. Dennis.
Good evening, President Meyer, members of the board. Fix it. Boy, I thought I was. All right, is it better? So the resolution in front of you this evening is authorizing the approval of an agreement with Osborne Engineering for professional services for the Westerville City Schools FY26 HVAC projects. The proposed contract and its related services are in full alignment and support of the district's preventative maintenance plan and the purpose of permanent improvement funds. Projects in schools included in the FY26 HVAC project list, which, just to note, is currently estimated at a construction cost of $4.5 million, covers 9 buildings, and they include the Early Learning Center. It is an IT room to add a mini split to that space to help maintain proper temperatures for the equipment in there. At Emerson, an air handling fan replacement and boiler replacement. Hawthorne, a rooftop unit, along with a new dedicated rooftop unit for our 3rd grade classrooms. Mark Twain Elementary Schools, a replacement of an air handling unit, make that 2 air handling units. Point View Elementary Schools, the rooftop unit replacement, one of theirs. Whittier is replacing a unit heater. Heritage Middle School is the addition of a mini split in a tech room, again, to help maintain proper temperatures on that equipment. Central High School, it is the domestic hot water boiler replacement and related system upgrades, and the air handling unit in the office. It is a cooling coil replacement, something I never thought I'd say. At North, we have the air conditioning mixing box replacement on one of the units, along with the direct digital controls upgrade and replacement of the pneumatic controls on 4 of the air handling units, and the replacement of 13 unit ventilators with VAC rooftop units, and also a replacement of a roof-mounted chiller. It's a lot of work that we are anticipating in the FY26 HVAC work. To note that at the June 9th board meeting, the board approved a resolution for us to negotiate the contract that is in front of you this evening. The reason we brought it back to you this evening was due to, excuse me, it being finalized. So it is being recommended that the Board of Education approve the agreement with Osborne Engineering Company to provide design services for the Westerville City Schools FY26 HVAC projects in the amount of $386,000 using permanent improvement funds. I would be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions?
That's just a not to exceed amount, if I'm reading that correct, not to exceed 386. Thank you.
That is correct, yes.
Okay.
Good.
Yep.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mr. Ackerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Liebman?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. And may I have a motion to approve the resolution authorizing an agreement with JL Dimmel, LLC DBA Digital Scoreboards, Ohio for the Westerville South High School scoreboard replacement project?
So moved.
Second.
And Ms. Dennis, will you talk to us about this?
Yes, so this resolution in front of you this evening is authorizing the approval of an agreement with JL Dimmel LLC, doing business as Digital Scoreboards of Ohio, or DSO. This provides construction services for the Westerville South High School baseball and softball scoreboard replacement projects. The scope is in full alignment with the district's operational and educational-based standards and the Facilities Department Asset Replacement Program. The scope of this work is to remove the existing scoreboards, steel structures, and then backfill beam location, drill new holes, provide and install beams and concrete into place, along with the prepping and painting of those beams. Then they will install and connect the new scoreboards. The design services creation of the documents that identify all of the scope codes necessary for the required permit for the City of Westerville's building department. The amount of this work is in total of $37,200 and will be funded from the permanent improvement funds. I just would also like to note that the scoreboard replacement was a joint project with the boosters and athletic department there at South. They did put in some funds for both of these boards, and I just want to make sure that we do note that. We're always grateful for their support. It is being recommended that the Board of Education approve the resolution for the agreement with DSO for construction services for the Westerville South High School baseball and softball scoreboard replacement projects. I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
I do just have one random one. How can you help us understand how we determine that contingency dollar amount, that $5,000?
Typically, depending on the project, it would be a percentage of the overall scope of the work. And that typically is if, let's say, they run into wet soil, and we've had that condition in other projects before, or maybe there was power that they thought was there that's not there. So typically, they try to anticipate, based on the project, what that number might look like.
Any other questions? All right, thank you. Would you take the vote, please?
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mr. Ackerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Liebman?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. And may I have a motion to approve the proposed reduction measures pending outcome of November 4th, 2025 ballot issue?
So moved.
Second.
Any further comments or?
Sorry, this is just a general question for our treasurer. These proposed reduction measures, I want to be very clear about proposed reduction and the non-specificity of some of those measures. We're required to have this as a part of our budgeting process, correct?
Yeah, so this is part of the auditor's guidance around ballot issues in general, and that in order for us to be able to talk about what might happen should the ballot issue fail in November, we have to have the board approve a formal reduction list, if you will. So I think it's important to understand that what you're voting on is what was presented here tonight, and that it would be in the event that the ballot issue fails in November.
And that's a framework. We're not voting for specific positions or anything at this point, right?
We have general areas identified with a target number of positions for the staffing piece, and then some other items outside of staffing. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, will you take the vote?
Mr. Ackerman?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Liebman?
Yes.
Mrs. Meyer?
Yes. Next up, we have board comments. Who would like to start us off?
I can start us out. First of all, I want to say thank you to Nicole, the entire leadership team, the superintendent, and for all of your work in putting this together. This is not fun. This is not easy. This is not where we want to be. Putting together these budgets and things that we could potentially have to lose should we not pass the levy in November. But I thank you all for your efforts in trying to do the best job that we can while still trying our best to protect the things that matter for the kids the most. So thank you. Also want to say thank you to the speakers. We had quite a few speakers tonight. Love seeing students and former students come in and talk. That's amazing. Thank you for standing up. It is not easy to public speak, so thank you for joining and sharing your opinions. I did want to talk briefly about the levy and some of the things that could potentially be cut if it does not pass. Not specifically about any one thing, but the ripple effects that this has. And it sounds like from those who were around in 2011, 2012, things that get cut at a particular point in time are not so easily just put back in if the levy passes the next round. So, thinking about things like the job environment for the staff and our educators and uncertainty that the staff and the educators have with the budget could lead to staff and educators leaving the district. We will not necessarily be able to retain that top talent, and it is much harder to recruit people back and convince them that no, it's fine now, even if we have future levies that pass. So that's, kind of a ripple effect that isn't necessarily a direct cut, but is something that is going to impact folks. Having parents having to spend money on music lessons or art classes outside of school because we don't offer those anymore. That's something they're going to have to be paying for and putting into their own budgets. That could be something that was shared by the entire community. Less time in schools for kids if we have to cut the length of the days. That's going to cost more in childcare for parents of young kids. And this could all lead to parents and future parents not choosing Westerville as their community. So this has major impacts just outside of, oh, well, who cares if that kid doesn't have art class? This has major impacts for the entire community. So I want folks to think about, is educating our future generations, is that a shared community responsibility? Or are we okay with that being solely each parent's individual responsibility, full stop? So along with any financial considerations that I know are on voters' minds, we are all feeling the pinch. I think this is a question we have to ask ourselves, is how are we willing to educate the next generation? And that was it on my end.
Again, congratulations to our retirees, and we do want to thank everybody who's here tonight. This is a very long meeting, so especially thanks to those who are still here, but those who spoke too. We really appreciate hearing your views. I guess I just want to say that I feel the situation we're in is like if you imagine your household budget, right, and you had a sudden, just escalating costs and flat revenues. At some point, you would find yourself needing to cut things that are really important to you, right? And the things that you would cut first might be really important to you, but you didn't absolutely have to do them. And you would probably choose, to continue paying for your housing and continue paying for your food and leave those things for last. Well, that's sort of the situation we're in here. So I just want to say that all of the things we talked about, we know are really important for kids. I know many of these things have been important and are today important to my own children, and I know they're important to kids all across the district. But we're like a household that's had escalating costs and flat income, and you have to start somewhere. So thank you to everyone who's put in all the work to do this carefully and with the least possible impact. There'll be an impact if the cuts need to be made, but the least possible impact. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I also want to thank everyone in the district who took a lot of time, several weeks, really putting this together. I mean, I know that that wasn't easy. Before I kind of get into what I really want to talk about, I also want to clarify earlier when I was discussing the magnet programs, I absolutely value both buildings. I know it's not a matter of values. I just wanted to emphasize that those are two really incredible buildings, and it's just unimaginable and unfair to have to decide, to be put in a position to have to decide what to do there. So I just wanted to clarify that. I think tonight my biggest takeaway and something that I really just valued was going through the forecast, and just kind of reminding the public that, you know, we do have lawmakers who are telling us to diversify our revenue. I mean, as a community, we did what we needed to do. We advocated really hard along with students. We did, because someone had asked earlier, what can the community do? We've done what we can do, and it fell on deaf ears, unfortunately. This board unanimously made the decision to put forward something really creative and earn income tax levy, whereas, you know, normally we're used to the property tax. And I guess where I'm going with this logic is this community is used to property taxes, and something with this earned income tax that I think is really interesting is just a relief that it is giving to seniors, folks who are retired, who are earning Social Security incomes. Earlier we talked about the many ways that there are relief at the state level for seniors. And so this district is doing everything that it can do to really think creatively, listen to the community. We've done the listening. We've done that in so many different ways. There was a comment about that earlier. And really where we're at right now is, I mean, honestly, it's just ridiculous that we're in this situation. As a parent who will have a little one entering kindergarten not too long from now, I can't even think about not having, you know, all-day kindergarten. When we talk about equity and all the amazing things that this body has done historically to ensure that kids get access to education, that is, it's not right. When I think about having to cut positions that obviously impact kids in the classroom, that's awful. But I'm also thinking about the drivers of these buses that now have to deal with their schedules being whacked or putting more on their plates. I'm thinking about the principals who have to now administer medicine because maybe a nurse is in a different building across the district. These are the things that we are having to decide. And so I just want to conclude with, I am absolutely going to review my notes that I've taken tonight. I appreciated the community members talking about the importance of the arts, how sports sparks joy and provides stability for our kids. I mean, there's not a single category that's more important than the other, but I really do value that the approach we're taking is what is the state telling us we have to do? What is not required? It doesn't mean that I agree with it, but it's a good starting point, and so I definitely value that. And then I just want to end with thanking all of the retirees who contributed to the 120 years of service in this district, and of course the donors who can continue to show up and pitch in so that our kids can get great experiences in the buildings.
So I'd like to echo everything there. A lot of great things have been said. I want to address just two things that haven't been addressed. Well, first of all, on a positive note, my daughter has had both Mr. and Mrs. Blankenship, so congratulations to them. I also wanted to take just a moment before speaking about the ballot issue to address my vote on release time for religious instruction. I do genuinely appreciate the hard work that the district has put into this. I have an issue with ambiguity as it relates to our students, and I felt like we should have spent a little more time on this, trying to work this out. If our legislators were unwilling to define it, who we can send our kids to, I wanted us to be able to do it. And I just want our policies to be super concrete, and so that explains my vote, hopefully. And again, it's not an indictment of the policy as it sits. It's just, I think we can do a little bit better. The way that came to mind as we talked about the levy for me was it's an ecosystem. And, you know, when you think about this in science, you know, you seem like you might be losing something unimportant in your ecosystem, a particular newt or a mosquito or something, but the way that ripples through up to the top of the food chain and the way it ripples through the entire, the grass and the prairie and the water and everything that gets impacted by one seemingly minor change And, you know, as someone who spent their life in the arts, I think about, well, why people are probably like, well, just take away music in the elementary school. And it's like, well, yeah, but then you lose music in the middle school. And then you lose it in the high school. And then you think about all the people who come to our high school football games, not just for the football team, but for the bands. And you can just see the impact on the ecosystem. So please do your due diligence, take your time, and really consider the negative aspects of this ballot issue not passing. And, you know, vote your conscience, but please do consider that.
Well, I'm going to echo my colleagues' comments and all the things. I just want to say, wow, you guys are amazing. Thank you for sticking in here. I might just take a reminder. I think at our GEM Awards, I think it was our GEM Awards, we heard about a coach that saved a student's life. I'm going to try not to tear up, but we now know that I'm a crier, so it's quite hard. But at any rate, this student's life was dramatically changed by a coach. We know these things unlock students. I've watched it in my own daughter, how art has unlocked her, and my son, who looks forward to soccer every single day, probably doesn't talk about anything else but that. These things matter to our kids. We really do teach them leadership skills and how to interact with maybe difficult people or you know, others that aren't like them, and it really sets them up for success in life too. So all of these things are really hard to digest. This was a very hard night, but I thank everyone for coming out. I thank everyone for taking a moment and providing your comments. And I guess I would say to someone who had said, go to our website for facts, I would ask you to reach out to the district for facts. If you have questions, if you don't understand something, if someone tells you something that doesn't make a lot of sense, please just reach out. I know Nicole has offered to sit down with whoever to go over the budget, and this is something she really loves to do, so take her up on it. But I'll just leave with that. Like, if you have additional questions and you're not answered or you don't know where to go, please reach out. We're happy to help answer those questions. This is really hard to digest. And I just thank you for the team for, you know, it's been hard to work on this for a couple of weeks now. It's not something that is fun or exciting, and it really pulls on the heartstrings. So, thank you to everybody. With that, the board will meet in regular session on Monday, on Monday, October 13th, 2025 at 6 p.m. at Westerville South High School. And that's 303 South Otterbein Avenue, and that's in Westerville, easily. And with that, may I have a motion to move into executive session for the purposes of discussing the employment, compensation, and discipline of public employees?
So moved.
Mr. Hackman?
Yes.
Mrs. Altman?
Yes.
Mrs. Valentine?
Yes.
Mrs. Levan? Yes. Mrs. Meyer? Yes. Okay, well, we are going to enter executive session. I imagine you probably won't stay. 9:41. This works? Oh, okay. All right. It's 10:04, and may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.